Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'll leave it another minute, so.
Thought maybe she.
No,
Boy, do these go any dimmer?
I know, really.
You have one right in your face too, Sue.
I know. Oh,
Boy, maybe if I,
yeah, I feel like I'm really in the spot. More than usual. Nice.
Why am I not connected?
Oh, that's not bad.
manifest, August must be all done. Yep. Yeah, we're still there.
Ruth, I forget my lines. You're gonna remind me. Okay?
Just speak up a little, okay?
This thing's right, recording right here.
Oh, okay.
Better move the
Yep.
crinkly stuff away
Yep,
from it.
the recording is for the YouTube,
Oh,
not
right, right.
for me. Did you know that? I didn't know that. I thought these microphones were for us.
Ah,
I found that out last week, I
Right.
Yep.
It just goes to YouTube.
all right.
Yeah. So,
You don't go back and rewatch them? I watch them over and over again.
honest?
No,
I'm afraid if I watch it, I won't ever sit
you
here
never
again.
come again. Right?
Well,
That's funny.
as soon as she at least comes in, I'll start. I want to wait.
Can I ask you a quick question? Did the care it's used to, like, did they go, now that it looks like they've got, what, 3 years?
Yes.
Did they used to be like that, or was that a big change? So it was never,
You
you know what I mean, like, did it, like, when it was a big change, you know what I mean?
I think those are costumes.
After. So this is better.
All right, so at 6:36, we'll return to public meeting. Next, approval or modification of agenda. Does anybody have any modifications to the agenda? Okay. Next, approval of minutes, August 23rd, 2021. Any gross errors or concerns regarding the minutes?
Page 3, under board members' comments.
right.
Sue Cheney noted, research shows masks are not approved. I don't think I said approved, I said maybe effective or,
You're gonna have to pass the microphone too. The whole thing, I guess.
okay.
Am I missing something? 'Cause I have
Okay.
the August 9th.
Page 3 of the minutes,
There's no
board members' comments. Sue Cheney noted, research shows masks are not approved. I don't think I said approved, I think I might have said effective.
Okay.
They're not effective.
Thank
I'm
you.
not, wait a minute. Are these, in my email, I have August 9th, not August 23rd.
What?
Does yours say August 23rd on the top?
Mine says August 9th.
There's a night.
It was August 23rd, because it says Tom Edwards was excused absent, that's the 9th, because I was absent on the 23rd. So, I don't think they're the correct minutes.
No, they're not.
We're gonna have to hold them.
It's funny, because I thought I remembered saying that before. Yeah.
So why don't we revisit?
I was looking because I was absent, I'm like, wait a minute, it doesn't say
Did
that
I
I
say
was
that
absent.
twice?
This doesn't make sense.
Well, you are in here.
Yeah, you.
Right. But these are August 9th, not August 23rd, because I moved to enter non-public.
And yet, I do remember you saying that, Suzanne.
So we'll have to
I
put it
thought
back
was
on
the
the
last
agenda.
one.
Okay. So,
Is it the right minutes with the wrong date on the
no,
top?
because it has my name written in there multiple times. I didn't motion for anything.
That seals the deal.
Yep. So that was an error.
We'll just get the correct one. Somehow we just got the August 9th ones again.
Shall we table that then?
Yes,
Table
we'll
that.
table the August 23rd. So next meeting we'll do August 23rd and September 13th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We probably just got the Rowan forward. No big drama. Okay, next we have public comment. I do have some correspondence for public comments that have been sent.
Do you want the microphone?
Just so we know, the microphone's over there. There is a 5-minute time limit. I ask that the presentations be as brief, not to exceed 5 minutes. All speakers are to conduct themselves in a civil manner. Obscene, defamatory or violent statements shall be considered out of order and shall not be tolerated. I have the right to terminate the speaker's privilege of address if the speaker does not follow this rule of order. Also, during public comments, there is no expectation of response from the board to the public. We listen, we take the information, and then we will proceed forward in our agenda. There is a public comment now, and there is a public comment later on in the agenda. Like I said, there's a 5-minute limit. I do have a few emails, but I'll read those towards the end. It is now open for public comment. And please state your name, the town you're from, please.
John Summers, Bristol. Again, we're at the meeting next month, last month, and I think we talked about not wearing masks at the school, and your plan, it just seems to keep failing. But the main thing is, I want to get back to, is you're superseding parents' rights. Parents have the rights to actually decide what's best for their child as far as when it comes to wearing a face mask or not, or having a vaccine or not, or taking certain medicines or not. This is not your job. Your job is supposed to be teaching our kids, all right? And what you do wrong, it's a trickle-down effect to the TTCC, to the libraries, and other organizations locally. So I would actually hope that you would actually think and actually vote on it. I'd like to see a motion and a vote tonight that you make masks optional and that parents have the right, not superintendent and not the board, but let the parents have the right. The other thing I want to just say here is, I happened to pick up online this week, is that the school board does not have the authority to make decisions because school boards are granted their authority by the state and federal laws. There have been no laws passed mandating masks in public schools. So you're superseding your power at this point. The superintendent is, and now also the school board. In essence, there should not be any mask worn ever unless it's the parent's choice to have their child wear one.
My name is Aubrey Friedman. I live in Bridgewater. I have 2 granddaughters aged 4 and 7. Last time I spoke against masks, so I won't belabor those points. I just want to add a few other things. First of all, one thing I heard at the last meeting, which the superintendent said, we're going to try to avoid making the whole thing mandatory with the masks and all that. It's good, but that he added we are going to follow the guidance of the Department of Health and Human Services. Already at that point I thought, uh-oh, this is a problem. You're going to listen to the bureaucrats in Concord and not listen to the parents. So this is very distressing to me because I have nothing against the bureaucrats in Concord. They're just doing their job. But to them, it's all about numbers, cases, data. They don't know our kids, and they don't, we wouldn't expect them to. But we know our kids, and we know what the whole school experience is supposed to be like, and if it's good, if it's bad, and this whole masking thing is making kids miserable. So you should not defer to them. You can listen to their guidance, hear what they have to say, but that's Concord. That's for the whole state. You should listen to the parents and see what's going on here and think about the kids, the whole school experience, not just safety and numbers, cases. Now, the other point I want to bring up is, okay, so we know on the first day of school, 4 teachers tested positive, everybody was fainting. Here we go again, masks and the quarantines. So I'd like to know the testing that's done, what is the PCR threshold that these cases are coming up? Now we know now at the beginning of the pandemic, you know, nobody knew it's cases, whatever, but we do know now, even the WHO and the Fauci say 28 to 33 is reasonable. So if you're testing to that and they're positive, they are infectious, it's something to be concerned about. However, I believe, but I'm not sure, I'd like to know, what are they using for these tests? I think they're going 40 and higher. If you're going that high, then you're having false positives. Because if you're going past 33, then there's not enough virus in you to infect somebody else. So this is actually really important. Cases, what are they testing in? I'd like to know. Also, another thing, the medical experts, supposed experts, are saying, oh, look at the last season, we hardly had any flu, and so we're all kind of holding our breath what's going to be this year, going into the fall and the winter. So this is like kind of setting the precedent. See, the masking did it, so we should continue it again. This is not normal to wear masks all the time, and so if they're going to start with this and go from like November through April, this is going to be perennial mask wearing, which is crazy. It's bad enough for adults. If they want to, that's fine. But to force it on the kids, this is not normal. So, and then just lastly, I have my own granddaughter, and you know, if this nonsense continues, I'm going to take her out of government school and put her into either a private or religious school where they actually listen to the parents. So I think you should listen to the parents, not just the bureaucrats. That's it. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sharon Lee. I live in Bristol. I have no children in this school district, but I have grandchildren in other school districts in this country and out of the country. And I would hope that there's a grandmother in their school district that's standing up for their freedom to breathe freely. Let's talk about what you know. Children are not at risk for this disease. They have a 0.01% chance of dying, and most of the time you don't even know that they have corona. They have a bigger risk of dying in a car accident or of drowning. We also know that masks do not stop the transmission of this disease. We also know that masks are very harmful for kids on so many levels. What we know is that if you pass this amended plan, it's not for the kids. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bradford Nogler. I am a teacher, but I am from Plymouth. May I please have a comment?
Yep, and we allow our teachers, as discussed last time, John, we allow our teachers to comment.
Thank you then. I'm hoping that per the revisions in the school reopening plan, that we keep with the students wearing masks. The CDC updated its guidelines back in August that regardless of vaccination status, that all staff members and students wear their masks. And recently the American Academy of Pediatrics implored the same thing, regardless of vaccination, we should be wearing masks. With the Delta variant, it is proven to be much more contagious, and we've already had a number of students, at least in the middle school, test positive for it and have had to quarantine, which is, even one student being the case, is unfortunate and something that I really hate to see. But my hope, at least, is that the board does go through with these revisions, mainly because I want to make sure that both staff and students are going to be safe. And until vaccinations are available for our students from the 6th grade and under, having at least masks is some action rather than taking no action. So thank you for your time. Please be well.
Brenda Joyce from Alexandria. I'm sure the board knows me very well. I've sent you several emails showing you all kinds of facts, showing you that the PCR tests are bogus. They can't discern between the flu and the coronavirus, so I'd like to know how the teacher can stand here and give a comment about our students coming down with the Delta variant. Where's the proof of the Delta variant? That's number one. Number two, we know masks don't work. They're not effective. They don't prevent the virus from spreading. To reiterate what this other woman said, our kids are the least likely. And furthermore, when you go to your doctor's office and you ask your doctor if he would prescribe medications that you know will treat coronavirus, and they tell you no because they have side effects, and I ask them, okay, can you show me the side effects? There's a pamphlet that comes with that, right? Yep. Okay. Well, you won't give me this because it has potential side effects that I know the risks, that I'm willing to take those risks for. But these drugs are given to pregnant women, correct? Yep. They're given to children, right? Yep. They've been around for 60 years, right? Yep. You won't give me those drugs. No, because of the potential side effects. Doesn't aspirin have side effects? Yeah, okay. Will you give me the coronavirus, the vaccine? Oh yeah. Can you tell me what's in it? No. Can you tell me the potential side effects? No. And that's okay. Don't you see what this is all about? It's about the money. You guys are getting federal funding. We all know that. You have to follow their guidelines or else they're going to remove the funding. You know that. You're using our children as pawns in this sick game. Did you not learn anything from the HIV outbreak that the government had everybody petrified over? Do you remember that little kid, Ryan White, and how everybody ostracized that little boy? For what? For absolutely nothing. And now you're doing it to our kids, and I resent it from all of you. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
My name is Cindy Houghton. I'm Cindy Young, sorry, and I'm a registered voter in Bristol, New Hampshire. I sat on a school board for many years. It's a tough job. But I want to remind all of you that are elected as our board members that you're here to represent parents who give to this school system their most precious resource, our children. And our children are being used as pawns for a political pandemic. The information is out there. You trust Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci lied about gain of function funding. And you're looking for funding from that same government entity who lies to you. You're here to take our precious resource and do what's best for them. It's time to stop playing the money game and do your jobs as humanity. Taking care of our children, taking care of the parents of our children. It's been spoken, the tests are bogus, the numbers are bogus. We all know that. The information is out there, and I'm sure, being the educated people that you are, you can find it. It's time to start realizing that this is a lie, and you are part of the lie. It's time to choose what side of history you're going to be on, and I hope you make the right choice.
Hi, my name is Sarah Cutting. I'm a registered voter in Alexandria. I am also a parent of 4 students currently in this district, and a teacher present at this high school. I'm here to speak today on 2 cases, and one is simply that I am not sure that you or the people in this audience who are not teachers are aware of how things have been going within our buildings. For one, we've removed all restrictions to your students. One-way hallways, the distance is not being maintained. You can't maintain 3-foot distance in most classrooms. It just is impossible with classes of 25 or more students. We are not doing hybrid. We're not doing any remote learning. All of the restrictions from last year have been removed, except for masks. It is our last potential line of defense to protect students from this virus. Now, the CDC and other policies, this is an article I shared with Ms. Cheney from Foster's Daily Citizen yesterday, point out that in New Hampshire, our case count right now, let me go back to this one, we have seen in New England a 700% rise in COVID-19 hospital admissions since late July, and a 1,900% case rise. That's 1,900% case rise since early July. And we are seeing them in our schools. We have 32 kids, according to your SAU dashboard right now, that are infected with COVID-19. 32 kids who cannot come to school, who cannot remote learn, who cannot get education. And their lives are disrupted. That's only 32, but at the same time, their lives are disrupted right now. And our lives in our classrooms are disrupted because we now have to provide work somehow that they maybe can't access. That's a whole complication I won't get into. However, in my opinion, as both a parent and a teacher, any student who has a potential to be protected from that disruption of learning should be given the opportunity to be protected. And if a simple mask, as the CDC points out, reduces the potential for transmission, which without a mask can be 8 to 9 people from an infected, either asymptomatic or symptomatic person walking around. We know we've had symptomatic and asymptomatic kids in our buildings. An unmasked person can transmit the virus to 8 to 9 people. If we can reduce that by half by wearing a mask, it's not 100%, we know that, I'll admit that, but it's something. And it is the last line of defense that we have right now in our building to make that change, to protect our kids. COVID-19 is a disruption. It's not going to be here forever. Nobody is asking to go down a slippery slope of let's make masks mandated for all flu seasons. That has never been a piece of this. The question is, how can we protect our kids when we are trying to be the least disruptive to their educational experience? You have not been hired to protect just the parents of this community. You're here to look for the most reasonable research out there to make the most reasonable decisions for our entire school district. I believe we should just simply go ahead and make it certainty of force. Why should we be wondering if we're going to have masks next week or not next week? Just use this one line of defense. Make masks mandatory for this school year. Hopefully we can get through and over this. The 32 students who are currently at home in quarantine, and probably the 32 next month and the 32 after, we might be able to restrict that to half, 1/3. If it protects one kid, I'm for it.
Steve Spencer, Bristol. I don't know what research you folks look at. I sometimes really suspect that you don't look at any research. But over the last year, I've been doing quite a bit of research on this stuff. Aerosolized, atomized particles, virus particles, of the size of about a micron will not be stopped by the masks, such as some of you are wearing. Those masks are relatively ineffective. Another thing is randomized controlled trials. I've looked at or read about 14 of them. There aren't too many of them, really. In the latest data that I've looked at, 11 of those trials showed that masks were essentially statistically non-effective. 3 of those, the other 3, were again statistically not effective, but there might have been a smidgen of help with the mask. And I say smidgen because I say statistically not a valuable number. Masks just don't do it. In fact, they're more harmful, in my opinion, because they collect everything that the kids throughout the day breathe in. The CO2, toxicity issues, all sorts of different things and stuff that kids pick up on a daily basis, touching their masks. Masks are more harmful, I believe, than they're helpful. And I don't think they're helpful at all. My gosh, if the kids are out playing sports and they're wearing stuff, wearing masks, good grief. Come on, folks. They can't breathe. They're losing oxygen. It's terrible. That's all.
Hi, I'm a teacher in the district. I am not a resident. Could I have permission to speak to this?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Jim LeBaron. I've been the high school French teacher, among many other things, since 1998. I've given more than half of my life to the well-being of this district. To start out, I want to make it clear that I'm here not as a representative of the school district, but just as a concerned person who cares very, very deeply about the well-being of this district. When I heard that you'd voted to go masks optional at the very moment that the Delta variant was causing the numbers to skyrocket, which they did, I was frankly flabbergasted. I was appalled, insulted, and angry. I have no doubt that many of you agree with me. It's a dangerous policy. And as we all now know, that policy had its inevitable immediate consequences. The virus spread like wildfire. I'm encouraged by the draft plan that is being proposed tonight, and I would humbly ask that you approve it. And of course, you have every right to mandate masks. I'm vaccinated, but I only have one lung. So I'd really rather not have your previous no mask is okay decision lead me to find out how well that vaccine does at protecting my one lung. The thing is, though, that it's not even my one lung situation that brought me here tonight. I'm here for my 5 unvaccinated step-grandchildren who don't have a choice. I'm here for all of the children and the immunocompromised and the elderly and even those people who remain convinced, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, that they don't want to be vaccinated. Because those who choose not to wear a mask indoors in the schools, whether or not they're vaccinated, are putting all of those people at risk. And I don't get why it's not just common sense to take care of one another. No one wants to be masked forever. I look forward to normal. But things aren't normal, and pretending they are only makes things worse. Choosing not to wear a mask is like driving 120 miles an hour down 93. You're free to do it, but who are you going to take out while you're exercising that freedom? I hate that we're in a time when big, loud voices and unfounded opinions drown out common sense, real science, and decency. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. I love this community. Please listen to the CDC. Encourage decency and compassion. Last year, the schools were the safest place to be. The kids aren't miserable. Mandate masks.
Kenny Braley, Alexandria. I've got a letter here from my wife who is currently home quarantining with one of my 3 children from the middle school, and she could not, just keep speaking to yourself, son. She can't be here tonight. So if you can bear with me, if I go to the 5 minutes, Melissa, you want to cut me off, I can come back later and just finish
Do
it
you
off.
have your wife's letter? Because I'm reading all of the letters at the end. You can speak for yourself, and then I can read
okay.
your letter like I am for everybody else.
That's fine. I can do
Okay,
that. Okay,
perfect. Thank
so
you, Kenny.
you want me to-
You can speak for yourself for your
Okay.
5 minutes, and then I'll read her letter.
Perfect. Okay, thank you, Mr. LeBaron. Thank you, Mrs. Cutting, for what you said. So we ended up with our entire family got COVID. The letter kind of speaks to some of the issues that my wife went through. Somebody who spends most of her waking moments exercising, staying in shape, who's having a hard time just making it up one flight of stairs at this point. A child who went in, so I know you guys are talking about your fake nose swab test, a child who went in and had a antibody test, which is a blood drawn, then goes to the lab to find SARS in it, and then we were told she still couldn't go back to school. But again, my letter kind of speaks to that. But just to a bit of an alarming thing going on here. You guys had 32, 33 cases in the last 13 days. For those of you guys who don't know, I work down at Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, 6,000 to 7,000 employees. We've had less than that in the same amount of time. And the reason why is because the Department of Defense mandated masks within cubicles, within small confined areas, within our buildings. Outside, everybody is free to breathe God's fresh green air. But inside of our facilities, we need to wear our masks. I understand that for adults, there's something about, you can't tell me what to do. I don't have to wear a seatbelt. I don't have to wear a helmet. I don't have to wear a mask. I don't have to wear a shirt or shoes to go into Cumbies to get my beer at night. But this is a pretty simple fact, like Mr. LeBaron said. We wear, for those of you guys who are anti-paper masks, I understand that, or even the cloth mask I have on. But like Mr. LeBaron, we've been wearing KN95 masks. It's mandated down at my daughter's college, and we watch numbers skyrocket and then fall back down again. And for those of you who believe that kids can't get this, there are plenty of other statistics out there, maybe not on Facebook and TikTok, that will speak to kids getting COVID, kids dying from COVID, college athletes, high school athletes, moms, dads, uncles, aunts dying from it. A friend of mine who is currently a missionary over in Africa who got it and just about left his wife and his 4 kids with no father because of it, and has been months in an ICU on a breathing tube, getting his feed, all of this other garbage that goes on because of that. Now, I understand that's not in our country, but the plain and simple fact is we have a way to take care of this. Last year, the kids were allowed to learn. I was grateful that the kids could get to do that. This year, my youngest daughter is still at home, and she is not getting any education. Like you said, she gets a couple of papers here and there. She's got a trombone sitting in the living room waiting to go to music class to follow her older sister who's in college as a music teacher because she wants to do that. She can't do that because I don't think my wife really could teach her how to play a trombone right now. So to me, this is a pretty easy fix. We're not asking kids to wear masks while playing sports. That's never, ever been asked. We're not asking those of you to get vaccinated. We aren't forcing anything here. But I do know this fact. I have not met many kids, if any, to be quite honest, that weren't told by their parents to say this, that mind wearing the mask because they enjoy being at school. I have not met any teachers who care about wearing masks. I have met parents who have now turned this into a political issue instead of a health and education of our children issue. Instead of it being about kids, it's become about whether you're red or blue, whether you're Trump or Biden, or whatever it is that you want to talk about, whether you're a vaxxer or an anti-vaxxer. I got vaccinated I'm a breakthrough case. I got COVID, as did my wife and my daughter. That happened. I don't like it. I did get a sick kid, by the way, so it is real, even if you don't think it is. Those things do happen. But the mask is one way for it not to happen. And the letter speaks to as to why my entire family did that.
Hello, my name is Danielle Heiler. I'm from Danbury. I have a first grader in the Danbury Elementary School. Actually, I wasn't planning on speaking at all, but I just feel compelled to, also because I'm a healthcare worker.
Just a minute, Danielle.
Yeah.
Can you turn up her volume?
Yeah, I can't hear. It's tough to
It might,
understand.
yeah, it might just not be.
That's much better, Danielle. Thank you.
So really what's bringing me up to talk here today is my concern with the number of cases, especially in our county school, elementary school. There's been 6 cases in our school. Obviously, I choose to mask myself, but not everyone in that school does. And my worry as a parent stems mostly from what I see in the hospital. It's insanity right now. There are no beds for pediatric patients and no beds for adult patients. So entire ICUs have turned into a COVID unit, which turns away traumas and other things, other sick patients. I see it every time I go to work, and I know a lot of people can't see the reality of it, but once you see a patient on ECMO, it kind of opens your eyes. So for me, I just feel like the last thing and the best thing we can do for our kids is to mask them. It's simple, it's proven to help prevent the spread of the disease, and really right now it's kind of the only thing we have going for us, especially my 6-year-old, she can't get vaccinated. So I send her to school every day in fear that she's going to get COVID. She has immunocompromised family members, a brother with asthma. These are all things that they might be fine if they were to get COVID, but they also could become critically ill. So it seems like a no-brainer to me to do this one simple thing. And I know especially, I know people are saying that kids don't like masks, they're hating their lives with masks on or whatever, but I mean, I have a 4-year-old masked and he's perfectly happy, being with his friends because he has a mask on. So I'm talking in circles right now. I'm just basically, my concern is the growing number of cases of COVID I'm seeing just in a tiny school. I'm for mandating masks. Schools all around this area have done it already. And even in places like where I work, I have to wear a mask for 14 hours. And it's saving people. There have been no cases in my unit, and I have very high locations. So another concern of mine is my children get it, something happens to me, I bring it to tiny, tiny little patients, that could kill them. So all I'm saying is that I just think it's the right thing to do. It's science-based, it's proven, and I'm all for it. And so thank you guys for all the time and effort you put into it. Thank you.
Can you speak up, please? Sorry.
Get closer to the mic.
When we first had COVID last year, coming into the school, that was nice to have all the kids come in and all of us masking and social distance. Right now, we kind of laid back on social distance. Most of us at elementary are
complicated. The only thing that I can think to do at this point is we need to have some type of area to help prevent the kids from getting sick, help prevent the staff members, even staff members who are getting sick that have been vaccinated. I was very delighted that we came back to school with a mask. I really thought maybe, we've gone through this, vaccinated, most of our staff have been vaccinated, but that's not the case. This is worse than when we started school. There are a lot more cases, and we're not doing contact tracing anymore. So if we don't contact trace and have somebody sitting next to this exposed student, and they just get to come back in wearing a mask, there's no quarantine, so it's household quarantine, so if we put a mask on and not get COVID, maybe that household would have to quarantine, and sometimes the kids are quarantined for 20 days. So if we can stop a kid from being isolated for 20 days, just to put a mask on, how helpful would that be? One of our other school nurses was supposed to be here today, and she's out at leave. And I think she put a letter through as well. So here I put a letter to you. So I hope that gets read today as well. Some of the numbers there's one part of that is 50%, 50 cases or something it says already, and it's going out. So, but I did want you to know that it's tough for the school nurses. We have a hard time keeping up with diabetics. We have a hard time keeping up with people that have asthma. We have a hard time keeping up with falls on the playground. Our day is consumed right now with COVID. I have to chart at the end of the day because that's all I'm doing. So it would help us tremendously if we were masking. We could maybe put one little layer, one mitigation layer in front of us to help try to stop this spread from happening, because it is happening.
No, ma'am, that's not how, that is not the school board rules. Our school board policy and procedure is not that. Every individual gets 5 minutes. That's our policy.
That's how the meetings are run, by Robert's rules.
Hi, my name is Emily Gatehouse. I am a graduate from Newfound. I moved away for 13 years. I lived in Louisiana, and I'm back this year for the first time as our new Spanish teacher in the high school. And I live in Newfoundland with my parents, the same house that I grew up in. So we've been there for 25 years, spent in this town of New Hampshire for 32. And so, I remember last year, I wasn't here, I was not in New Hampshire, so COVID in New Hampshire is like a whole new ballgame for me. I was in Louisiana, and so I'm going to speak to that just for a minute because I do think that it actually really relates. So, at the beginning of the school year last year, Louisiana, if you looked at all of the numbers from the entire world, Louisiana had the highest numbers in the world per capita. And my school and all of the schools in Orleans Parish where I worked, we all masked. And we didn't have any, excuse me, thank you. We didn't have any.
Excuse me, can we pause for a moment? Please be respectful of the speaker up, and please allow her to speak. I'm giving you one warning, okay? If we have to recess, I'll ask you to leave. I'm asking you to please give her the respect. Thank you.
So, I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, right, Louisiana had the highest numbers, so my school, all the schools in Orleans Parish, we all masked. I worked with children who were 4, up until children who were 12 and a half, and I have to tell you, not a single student complained about wearing a mask. I didn't have to remind a single student to wear a mask because they understood the importance of community and the importance of keeping each other safe. So coming back to New Hampshire, I was stoked. I was like, man, COVID numbers are going to be so much lower in New Hampshire. It's going to be great. Everybody's going to be doing the right thing. We're going to go back to school. We're going to be wearing masks. People know what's up here, right? Totally different place in Louisiana. I came back, boom, no mask required. The first day that we had staff all together in this auditorium, a lot of staff members were not masked. Fine, it's your prerogative, it is not mandatory. We got an email the first day of school, or I guess it was probably right before school. There have been COVID positives in the auditorium among our staff members. Everybody needs to mask. Day one, we didn't even get to be with the kids yet, and staff members already had to mask, okay? And then we made it in the high school one day, until we got another email that said, hey, for the next 10 days, everybody has to mask. Those 10 days, I think, should have been up last Friday, but then we got another email that said, hey, we have to keep masking because we keep getting more cases, right? And so, if you guys didn't get, if you guys had like 50 cases in the entire year last year, and we've already basically had a mask mandate because it is very clearly unsafe to not have a mask mandate, then it just seems like this is the obvious thing to do. And it's not just about me and my feelings, because I'm over it. I'm totally over it. I don't want to wear a mask. I'm a language teacher. Kids need to see my mouth. Do you know how hard it is to learn a foreign language if you can't see how somebody is forming the words? I hate it. My breath smells. I'm tired of it, right? But it's not about me. It's not about me. It's not. It's not about our individual opinions. It's about the community. It's about being together as a community, making sure that our children are being educated. It's about making sure that our staff members are here to do their jobs. It is about making sure that my baby doesn't get sick and die. It is about making sure that my parents, who I live with, who are both vaccinated, who both have severe underlying conditions, it is about me not bringing something back to them. It's not about my personal opinions. I don't like this. I don't want to do it. My opinion doesn't matter. What matters is the community, the people who can't be protected, right? Those are the things that matter. I just looked up the CDC information for Belknap and Grafton County, and both of them have incredibly high risk levels. And the CDC says, point blank, high risk of community spread, and everybody should be masked indoors. No, I understand, businesses, whatever, you guys can make your own decisions. But quite frankly, how many businesses are packed into poorly ventilated classrooms and see over 100 people a day? I am elbow to elbow with over 100 different individuals a day. How many businesses do that? We're not tracking people. We're not, nothing else. As has already been said, nothing else has been done. So, to the gentleman who, was that my 5 minutes? Okay, thank you so much.
Point of order? Yes. Point of order clarification as to Robert's rules. Most public bodies do go by Robert's rules, but only when there is not a stated for BDDH, the presentation should be as brief as possible, not to exceed 5 minutes, unless authorized by the chair to continue to speak. In public session, the board will not hear personal complaints of school personnel nor against any person connected with the school system. Other channels provide for board consideration and disposition of legitimate complaints involving individuals. Just on a procedural information piece. Thank you. Next.
Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening. Randall Kelly, Bristol. I don't even know where to begin, honestly. First of all, I wish the kind of manipulative guilt that I heard expressed about not wearing a mask was expressed years ago when so many people would die of the seasonal flu because of the exposure from masks. I just find it quite, a lot of hypocrisy involved with the application of this. And then, my memory might strike me wrong, but I thought we just installed a $1.3 million HVAC system that was going to kill 99.9% of the viruses. I might be wrong, but I could have sworn that's $1.3 million that I guess we didn't need to spend. Once again, I could go on and on and on. I could rehash. I could touch on a million things. I just think this is absurd. Masks do anything but subdue the learning environment. They do nothing but that. For common knowledge, we just removed our 3 children from the school system and placed them in a private school. And this is the reason why. I went in to speak to the principal from the middle school regarding this and got nothing but condescending tones. I don't appreciate that. I realize sometimes I might be a little abrasive, but this thing called professionalism. I won't go any further because I understand.
Thank you. I just read the rules, so thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am, and I understand, and I apologize if I did go too far. I'm going to leave it at that. I just think this is absurd. The only thing that stops a virus is a self-contained hazmat suit with its own oxygen and such. That's been common knowledge for many years. There's been many studies done on that. That's why if you see those handling Ebola, they definitely don't just have a paper mask on, because they need to stop the virus. Paper masks will not do us anything. I wish that we just go back to some normal sense and some common sense and reasoning behind all this, because I think we'd find a lot more common ground between everyone. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more public comments, we will, I will begin. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
How are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I'm David LaRue from Alexandria. I would echo Randall's comments that we are free to have different choices and different opinions in this damn country. Oh, sorry. No swearing, sorry. So we're free to have different opinions, and that doesn't mean we need to condescend our neighbors and accuse ill intent. I think everybody here is hopefully here for the same reason, because we want our lives to go back to normal. We would like to see children generally safe as that can be, and we would like to get the most for our tax dollars, as this makes up over 2/3 of the tax dollars I pay. I would also echo that I think it's very clear that people are losing faith in the school system. This issue and the treatment of parents and children who do not wish to partake in this, being condescended, being pushed that they are societally bad people, being one of those. You can go to the census.gov if you'd like an official resource, as I did earlier. Homeschooling went from 3.3% on national average to then 5, and then now to, I believe it's up to around 11. Okay, go read those numbers. It's no lightly known fact that people are deserting schools in droves. This is an explosion. There's been over a doubling of homeschooling households in this nation in the last school year. Okay? Riddle me that one. Now, it's already been addressed how masking is effective for a bacteria, not a virus because of the micron size. We can talk about the environmental system and all the money we spent there. We can talk about all these things, and we can throw facts and different science at each other, because for every science article that is presented from one side, I can find something from another, i.e. the Oxford study that says somebody who has been vaccinated has 217, or whatever the number is, times the viral load in their body versus me who doesn't. Okay, we can do this all day. The bottom line is this masking and the vax stuff that is beyond this, and that's not what this issue is about, but the trend that we are going down, pushing that we are bad people, our children, if they also don't agree with this and they don't want to do that they're bad children, that we are somehow societally responsible for all of this COVID. Okay, that is a lie. Now, it's also been said that people would like to get back to normal sooner than later, that this is not being pushed into perpetuity. That is not what anybody wants. Well, if you look at the New Hampshire numbers, real numbers, over about 18 months now, less than 8% of the state has even come into contact with this virus. How many years are we going to continue to do this? The death rate is as low as the seasonal flu. And yes, there are healthcare providers who have been intimately involved with this. I just spent a month protesting up in front of Dartmouth-Hitchcock, and I have made about 250 friends who are healthcare workers in the last month and a half, who are, their jobs are on the chopping blocks, and their livelihoods and their kids' future are on the chopping block because they do not want to be forced to get a vaccination. So I am also intimately familiar with, besides the fact that my wife is a fourth-year nursing student and spent the first year and a half of COVID as a caregiver in a nursing home where everybody was masked, everybody got temperature checks daily, nobody was allowed to go to work with even a sniffle. You did your temperature checks and your checks before you even clocked in, and yet we still have over 62% of people in long-term care who have died from this. We have over 60% of people in New Hampshire who have died from this are over the age of 80. The average life expectancy in New Hampshire is 79. These are just facts as well. And there is a feeling element here. There is a heartfelt feeling. I understand that. My grandparents and my biological father have been dead for years. It is not lost on me that I also have 4 elderly family members who are all vaccinated. But the feelings argument does not make up for the fact that 6 out of 10 people who have died in New Hampshire the entire last 18 months are actually on borrowed time. That is a fact. That might be an abrasive way to say it, but that is a fact. I do not believe we should make policy that ruins generations of children coming up because somebody who is 90 years old and has 3 or 4 comorbidities and is locked away in a nursing home still has a 6 in 10 chance of dying from this. It came out last year that children are not significant vectors of transmission. Everything we thought about surfaces, it's not that bad. Okay? The masking is not going to save us. Government cannot save us, and science cannot save us. We cannot vaccinate everybody. We've had somebody here who is already vaccinated, breakthrough cases. Okay? We have people who have been told that if you're not vaccinated and somebody is exposed, you can now not come to work, you can now not go to school. But somebody who is vaccinated can leave their household and come here and virtue signal that I'm a bad person. Is that it? Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Danielle. Can everyone hear me?
Speak up a little.
Can you guys hear me up there?
Yeah, now I can.
So, my biggest issue with this whole mask
Name again, sorry.
Danielle.
And you're from?
Bristol.
Bristol, right? Okay, thank you.
It was the first day of school, I got a phone call from the SAU, there's a positive case of someone who went to school. So why are parents, behold, sending their kids to school when they have a test pending? And if they got a rapid test on that thing, then they must have been symptomatic. So why are they in school? Why are we punishing all the kids and parents who actually adhere to your guys' guidelines, doing temperature checks, make sure we're not sending our kids sick to school, just for other parents to turn around and be like, oh, I don't care. My kid can go to school, it's not my problem. It'll be the school's problem, it'll be other parents' problem when my kid has a test pending because they probably had a close exposure, should be quarantining, but they're not. And they're still going to school. Obviously, DHHS, who's supposed to be notifying the school districts that, hey, you have a positive case in your district, isn't doing that and that people need to be quarantined if you guys are still allowing these kids to come to school. My daughter was out the first 2 weeks because she was in quarantine. I had her tested. I didn't send her to school even though she was asymptomatic or had no symptoms, had no idea if she was positive or not. Why don't we uphold it to the parents? Make the parents uphold the fact that, well, you send your kids to school, have a cutting test, there should be some type of consequence for them. Should not be every other child that has to suffer. You guys aren't shutting schools down, which I appreciate, because there's a positive case. But it doesn't go to the fact that putting masks back on our kids. My daughter came home today, she's like, I can't wait to get this mask off. When's the last day that I have to wear this in school? I'm like, well, I don't know, because the school board's now wanting to push the issue of putting masks on kids all day again. And it's not fair. It's not fair to the children. My daughter has yet to come home without a headache because she has to wear a mask all day. My son has been so happy that he has been able to go to school and not have to wear a mask. Why should our kids suffer because of people's negligence? Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Lieutenant Dean.
Christine from Bridgewater. I'm not going to speak about my opinion on masks or not, but just to make everybody aware, my son was missing school all last week because of pneumonia. He was cleared to go back to school, however, from the doctor with a negative COVID test. However, we were told we had to keep him out for the whole week because he still was coughing nonstop. Therefore, it was would bring concerns to the school and other kids. So we kept him home for the week. We were also told that more likely than not, he received pneumonia, which is more life-threatening to children, because his immune system was probably weaker, being a young age, he's in first grade, because he was not exposed to a lot of the different germs and everything within the last year. Not guaranteed that's what caused it, but they said there's more likely that that is the case. So just to keep that in mind, it's not just the coronavirus that's going around. My son was put on antibiotics, was good to go, still coughing to this day, will cough for the next 3 weeks. However, there's other viruses still going around, so we should be thinking about that as well.
Okay, I have, sorry, I'll turn it closer. Feel weird. So I have some emails that have been forwarded to either all of the board or some of the board that are requesting. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
My name's Brian Kingsbury. I'm from Bridgewater. I was hoping that I didn't have to come here tonight, and I was definitely hoping that I wouldn't have to speak. There's a lot of people that have different views, that all have legitimate concerns, and they shouldn't be diminished or discounted by another side because people have an idea about their feelings and their opinions based on their circumstances. So there are some people that don't experience working in a particular setting where that would affect their opinion, and there's some people that say, you know, here's my circumstances and what I've seen,
is it's something, but it doesn't seem, you know, like such a bad thing. And it seems, without trying to touch on everything, I could ramble for 8 hours. There were a lot of people that had a lot of good points on both sides. It seems like people came out because of the excuse me, reopening letter that went out, which I just learned about this afternoon. Excuse me. But it seems like what I'm hearing is people feel strongly that, you know, there should be masks, and that's fine. But as of right now, masks are optional, so you can wear a mask, and people who choose to could wear a mask. But that doesn't mean that everyone has to wear a mask. It seems like it's when I stand back and look at people's reactions, if I'm volunteering somewhere last year and there's a notification that says it's okay if we don't wear a mask for this particular thing, and everyone rages in excitement, throwing their mask off, students and teachers, that should be, you know, accounted for and noticed. And I fully understand if there's a few people out there that are more nervous because they have a legitimate case where, you know, someone is really sick, and nobody wants that. So it seems like it's good to use guidance from reputable places. But I think what a lot of people are feeling is it's hard to determine what's a reputable place. And then when there's sort of behind the scenes circumstances that not everyone gets to know about, some people have mentioned funding. I just hope that you consider what's really your true in your heart observation. If you watch a school for, you know, opening in the morning when kids come in, what the people's demeanor are and everything else. And it seems like the state is saying, you know, it should be up to the towns, let the parents of the kids voice their concerns, because there's different circumstances. Pittsburgh and Colebrook isn't Manchester and Nashua, and it's all different. And I think that's the way it should be. I think that we're adults and we need to be responsible for ourselves and our children. And I hope that you consider what's true in your heart and what you really see out in the real world with your real eyes, and not so much on some data points. That's all good stuff to weigh with, but I hope you do what's in your hearts and what you see, and take into consideration what people are feeling. Not necessarily just the people that aren't so well spoken like myself, with, you know, a big sales pitch, but it seems like giving people options to do what they want to do is what most people want, versus forcing people to do things that they don't want to do, especially when it comes to something as sensitive as the kids. So I appreciate everything that you guys do. I appreciate everyone getting up to speak that has views on both sides, so that people can hear those things, hear those circumstances, think about it, and I hope that we can all still be friendly to one another, even if we have different views on different topics. So that's really what the community and the world needs right now, is being fair to one another. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Yes, Josiah, go ahead.
Josiah Town, Josiah Town. I live in Bristol, and I just had real quick. I know that I just want to thank everyone up there. You guys are between a rock and a hard place, and I know whatever choice you make, you're going to get blasted from one side or the other. So I appreciate that you guys are in a hard spot. My personal belief is that it should be the choice of the parents on if they're going to mask or not. This virus doesn't seem to be affecting kids from a lot of studies as much as the older populations. As of the 8th of this month, For the age class 0 to 4 years old, it's 148. From 5 to 18, it's 338. So trying to use my Newfound math here, that's 486 children that have died in the last, from 2020 to now. And that's on a population of between 70 and 80 million. So if they're not contracting it, they're not dying from this. And I think that we should let the numbers speak for themselves, and whatever your decision is, I know that you guys had a hard choice to make, so thank you.
Okay, I'm going to proceed with emails. Jennifer McDonald, New Hampton. First, I want to thank you for your service to the children of the Newfound Area School District. Your time and efforts are greatly appreciated in this difficult climate. I am writing to you today to encourage you to consider universal masking for all of the children of the Newfound Area School District. Newfound was successful last school year in keeping the schools open with common sense mitigation procedures and masking. The Delta variant of today poses a much greater risk to children. A year ago, children were not contracting COVID. This is not the case today. Last school year, the district was following the recommendations of the CDC. I would encourage the district to return to this posture. The CDC is recommending universal indoor masking for all students and teachers. This seems like a common sense mitigation practice that we can put in place to protect both our students and staff. You'll never make everyone happy with your decisions. However, during the pandemic, I believe it is the job of our school board to make policy that protects children and families. You simply do not know what situations your students and staff may be experiencing at home. Perhaps a staff member has an immunocompromised spouse or parent at home that they're caring for. Perhaps the children have younger siblings or family members at home with compromised respiratory systems due to childhood diseases such as RSV or asthma. Both of these situations are reality in our family. Universal masking for all students and staff is one mitigation step that could help keep our family and the community at large safe. I encourage you to reinstate universal masking in our schools. Please accept this letter as public comment at your next meeting. Again, thank you for your continued service to our children and community. Warmly, Jennifer McDonald, New Hampton. Oops, not the right email, sorry. Next email is from Deirdre Conway, President of the NTU. Dear New Hampshire, Newfound Area School Board, and Superintendent Kuchar. I am currently aware of the rising number of students testing positive for COVID. Although teachers have most likely been vaccinated, there are breakthrough cases. I was fully vaccinated last year when the district offered it. Unfortunately, I tested positive August 24th and have still not attended school. I am currently hospitalized as it caused additional medical issues. My concern is, what if this happens to the other teachers? Without teachers in school, we can't have school. In order to help ensure safety and protect the teachers, I believe the masking of the unvaccinated should be required. That would include elementary students and some middle-high school students. Otherwise, the district risks closure. Sick teachers can't work. Please carefully consider the options regarding masking as you make your decisions. Thank you, Deirdre Conway. This is from Kristen Patterson. She's the Newfound Memorial Middle School Library Media Specialist and a Bristol resident. Superintendent Kuchar and school board members, I urge you to mandate masks in all schools for all students and staff until children can be vaccinated and until a greater percentage of those eligible for vaccine receive vaccines. According to New Hampshire.gov data, as of 9/10/21, there are still only 61.5% of age-eligible New Hampshire residents fully vaccinated. According to the district self-reporting, we now have had 32 cases in the district in just 12 days of school. Please heed the warnings of the public health officials that masks continue to be one of the effective measures to reduce the spread of the virus. Please learn from the examples we have seen in other parts of the country where schools and districts have had to close or return to remote learning because they started the year without masks and incurred very quickly high rates of transmission, increased hospitalizations, and even death among staff and students. Again, for the safety of all members of our communities, I urge you to require masks in all schools. Thank you. sorry. Oh, 3 more. Kendra LaPlume. She asked us to read her original email. Hi, Mr. Kuchar. She's from Bristol. Yeah, Bristol. I hope all of these emails you have had to send out regarding COVID cases and masking in different parts of the district, you will now consider requiring masking in all of our school district, in all of our schools district-wide past your 14-day mandate. Making masks optional at this point in the pandemic and not requiring vaccination for children in your educational buildings is incredibly irresponsible and setting up peer-pressured situations for children during a public health crisis. Please listen to the science of this pandemic and not the opinions of some parents on our district. Thank you, Kendra. Good evening, Newfound School Board. I am Stacy McLean, school nurse at Danbury Elementary School. I'm writing this message for you for consideration as I am unable to attend due to my own COVID appearing symptoms that appeared today. I cross my fingers for my own negative results as I cross my fingers for unity with the Newfound family in the topic I'm about to address. Last year, we consistently supported multiple layers of protection. Per guidance from New Hampshire DHHS to keep our students as safe as possible against COVID-19. We masked, we socially distanced, and we cohorted groups to the best of our ability. The district did an excellent job of responding to each recommendation seriously, and we were able to mitigate COVID so well that it was never under suspicion of transmission within any of our buildings last year. School was certainly proving to be one of the safest places to be. This year, New Hampshire DHHS has not provided as specific guidance, but instead a toolkit with recommendations and universal best practices. We have been left to our own devices to make these decisions district by district in New Hampshire. Our Newfound Area School District Health Management Committee, which includes all school nurses of our district, several school administrators, and our superintendent of schools, met well before the beginning of the school year to discuss what opening would look like this coming year. Given the current community transmission at the beginning of August, considering how well kids have been doing at our very own community center in Bristol's summer day camp, 0 COVID cases were detected all summer without masks, social distancing, or cohorts. We also thoughtfully and respectfully considered those parents of children who felt strongly against masking. Therefore, we employed the plan of starting the year as least restrictive as possible, with optional masking, distancing is possible within each building, and regular hand hygiene. We would begin this way with the caveat that we would continually be reevaluating the effectiveness of this plan through the coming months. Optional masks quickly turned into necessary masking for groups who may have had an exposure to someone who has tested positive for COVID-19. We soon were reactionary in our masking decisions, which has proven to not work well. We have now only been present in our schools with students for only 12 days, and I will tell you that it is not going well, to put it bluntly. As a district, we currently have 50 total COVID cases. My small community elementary school in Danbury, of which I love dearly, currently has 62 students. Today, at day number 12, we already have had a total of 10 positive COVID cases to contrast against last year's 3 total cases of COVID throughout the entire year. Today, DES had nearly 40% of our student population absent for COVID isolation, quarantine, COVID appearing symptoms pending test results, and less than a handful for other reasons. That does not include the 3 I sent home for mild symptoms, one of which has already come back positive this afternoon. The evidence is alarmingly clear that we need an additional layer of protection for the health and safety of our students, our staff, and our community. Our Health Management Committee is in 100% agreement that we need masks back in the schools, universally, required for all staff and students at this time. If this does not happen, I'm certain we will be headed for school closures and COVID cases and deaths within our own community that could have been prevented. We are better than this. We love our community. Let's show it the respect, care, and protection it deserves. Thank you, Stacy McLean. Next, this one is from Noelle Campisi from Danbury. She's a Danbury resident. Not wearing a mask at school isn't working. More and more students are testing positive for COVID. Elementary students can't get the vaccine. Many elementary students are testing positive for COVID, and it hasn't even been a full month of school yet. Yes, their symptoms seem to be minor, if any symptoms at all. It doesn't seem to be affecting them as badly as adults. That is a good thing. But who is to say that will be the same for all of them? The asymptomatic ones don't know they have it and are transferring it to others. This also includes the staff that have gotten the vaccine. Yes, they got the vaccine, but they can still get COVID and give it to others around them. They can be asymptomatic. We'll never know it unless they get tested. The vaccine doesn't keep them from spreading it. Students are bringing it home to people with very weak immune systems and don't even know it. Also, everything that is listed for COVID symptoms is the same as anything and everything else, including a common cold and allergies. If you have just one of those symptoms, you have to go get COVID tested no matter what. We have to go get tested at least once a month, if not more. Some families, it's once a week. This is so hard on the family and the child. The child, especially special needs, has to go through so much trauma just to get the testing done. The people who have to do the test have to keep replacing the test strip many times in order to get the test done because of the fight the child does and keeps contaminating the testing. Parents are telling their children they need to be wearing their masks while in school. When the kids are in school and see others not wearing them, they won't wear them. Then parents get upset with the staff if they find out their child isn't wearing a mask. It's hard on staff to be policing on what students are to be wearing their masks per parent and guardian request. I think that's all of our emails. I have this one here, but I believe that's all of our emails we got, correct? Okay. This is your wife's type. What's your wife's name? Nicole. Okay. No one has the right to affect someone else's health, education, or emotional and mental well-being. But that is exactly what this school district has done to all three of my children by disregarding the recommendations and guidelines of medical experts and organizations on masking to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Each of my daughters have suffered both short-term and I'm afraid possibly long-term consequences because of your decision. And I'd like you to listen, put yourself in their shoes, and understand the heartache they have had to endure over the past month. My daughter Autumn had just started her freshman year of college in Pennsylvania 3 weeks ago when after her first day of classes she called saying she had a fever, wasn't feeling well, and was told by the university's health department to stay in her room until they could get her tested. The next afternoon, a nurse called and not only told us Autumn had tested positive for COVID, but that we had to come and get her the next day. We were shocked not only that she had COVID, since she was fully vaccinated, wears a mask everywhere she goes, and is hyper-vigilant about keeping her distance from others, but also shocked that her school was forcing her to leave campus to quarantine. We knew it would be irresponsible to bring her to her hotel where she could spread the virus, so my husband got up at 2 in the morning and made a 21-hour round trip to Pennsylvania to bring her back home. Autumn's a music major, education major, which at the university she attends has almost the course load and intensity of a double major. Due to her COVID diagnosis, not only did she miss the first day of her alternate day classes, but because some of the professors were unprepared to do virtual classes, altogether she missed 15 college classes. Ended up having to drop one course because she knew there was just too much she was going to have to make up. She missed her first ever college track meeting and practice, ensemble meeting practices, instrument lessons, and the numerous orientation week gatherings where freshmen had the opportunity to meet, socialize, and make new friendships. The anticipation, excitement, and memories of the beginning of her college experience was unfairly taken away from her, and now after returning, she has had the hardship of trying to make up all the coursework and practice time she missed and has been struggling to feel like she belongs, since she wasn't there when everyone had the opportunities to get to know each other. Isabel, our middle child, a sophomore in our HS, tested positive the day after we found out Autumn had COVID and isolated at home for the next 10 days. Our district, despite the Delta variant being twice as contagious as the previous form of COVID and spreading through the summer, decided not to offer a remote learning option, even for those who either were positive or had close contact and were required to quarantine. It was stressful and worrisome to both her and I think about missing days of classes and how far she might fall behind right at the beginning of the school year. But thankfully, she had teachers that did an excellent job of letting her know what was being covered in class and what she could do for work so she wouldn't fall too far behind her classmates. Isabel's education was not as affected as much as it was for Autumn, but her health was. She had a fever for days, headaches, and breathing difficulties. The breathing problems have continued, which has affected her performance in soccer. Isabel worked hard all summer to prepare for the season, training every day on her own and attending almost all the summer practices that were offered. She couldn't have been more prepared for the season until she got COVID and now has breathing difficulties even when just running short distances. Hopefully it's just a lingering symptom that will eventually get better. But it's possible she could be a COVID long hauler, or even worse, have permanent lung damage. That's the most frightening part of COVID, and especially the Delta variant. You never know how it will affect any given person. Aislinn, our 10-year-old, was the only one in our family that did not test positive for COVID when the rest of us did, and hasn't since. And there is a reason for that. That I'll get to later. Aislinn is a 6th grader and was beyond excited for her first day of junior high when she found out her first day would also be her last day for the next 20 days because she lived in a household with others that had tested positive. I can't even begin to explain the sadness and feelings of being overwhelmed, disappointed, and frustrated she has gone through over these past 3 weeks. That could have all been avoided. Going from elementary school up to middle school is a monumental change for a 10-year-old. They're going from a single classroom, teacher, and all the same classmates to navigating a new building with many classrooms, many new teachers, new classmates in each class. That alone can be overwhelming. Just think of it, of what it would be like to know that everyone else is meeting teachers, learning new subjects, making new friendships, participating in sports, all without you. Having no option for remote learning this year has been an absolute struggle for her. 20 days of missing all the material that is covered in 8 different classes, all the missed discussions, examples given, notes being taken, classwork done together. Some teachers have been great and kept us updated and given her work to do, but others have had
Yep.
Come on, that's not fair.
These are various people's letters, not just one.
No,
it's
no,
one
this
person.
is 5 minutes of the one.
It's one
So,
person.
I think they're right.
Okay, I'll be honest, I didn't start the timer, I was just reading.
I think they
Okay,
It's one person.
I think we get the point. Any further public comment? Okay, moving on. Correspondence?
Well, I got all the same correspondence as you did when you read. So,
Can you read that?
Announcements and recognition. Superintendent report.
so obviously the topic of the opening plan has been well discussed tonight. Just a few comments on that. In the 5 weeks since the opening plan has been approved, the number of COVID cases in the Newfound community has increased significantly. So when we presented our plan for approval on August 9th, there was very little COVID in the community, and there was no COVID-19 at the community center at TTCC. So we felt confident that we could have our plan include mask optional. So that quickly changed, as been stated today. After the first day, at the end of the first day at the high school, we had our first COVID case. So we now have, there's been a lot of numbers thrown around, it's been changing up all day. We now have confirmed 42 COVID-19 cases in our schools since school started. It's 12 days of school. Last year, we wore masks every day, and we had 50 total cases, but with no community transmission. So when students had COVID, they transmitted it over the weekends in their own time, but we had no community transmission. So our current plan, we've discovered, is not effective in reducing community transmission. So in one of our schools, elementary schools, we had where there were mask optional, there were no masks. Student came in from over the weekend and was present in that class for a couple of days, and then was tested and found to have COVID. And since then, that half of that class has COVID, including the teacher. So that's our first time that we've had community transmission, including all of last year, and they were not wearing masks. We have COVID-19 outbreaks at 2 of our schools, and reason to believe that we have community transmission, as I expressed. We now have COVID-19 affecting teaching and learning, as well as athletics. After meeting with the SAU4 Newfound Health Management Committee and reviewing the COVID-19 data in our schools, I'm recommending that the school board approve the revisions to the school opening plan, which includes requiring mask wearing in all schools. I'd like to comment on that. Last year, we wore masks for 180 days, and I had very few complaints. Those complaints only came this summer at our August 9th meeting, and we felt like we did a good job protecting our students last year. We also, as Deidre Conway pointed out in her email,
we need to protect our teachers and staff. We're teetering at the point where if our teachers become infected, and we don't have teachers to teach, we're going to skip right over remote, like possibly closing down the school and having our teachers teach remotely to where we're going to close our schools. I mean, we're at the point right now in the little Danbury school where we have 2 teachers out with COVID right now. So you could see that expanding if we don't protect our students. We'll continue to meet with the Health Management Committee and review COVID-19 data in our schools and community to evaluate the need for continued mask wearing. So if this may not be the recommendation for the entire year, but if things become more under control, we could go back to mask optional. And I just want to point out one thing. One of the people who spoke today spoke about the very low number of students that have died from COVID-19. I think if we had one child die, Newfound child, that would be too many, I would think. If it was my child and my board did not support the recommendation of their superintendent and my child died, I think I'd have a problem with this board, and I don't know how I would address that. So I think it's very important to remember that if we don't support this recommendation, that we're doing nothing to protect our children. Okay, and this has been expressed by several people today, that it's the only layer of mitigation for the safety of our children that we're recommending right now. So I hope you support that and support your children and your teachers in our schools.
Can you just remind, who's on the health management team?
Health management team consists of our 6 school nurses. We're all registered nurses. We have 2 principals, Ann Holleran and Paul Horius, our high school principal, and our New Hampton principal, Ann Landry, our director of special education, and myself.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I have to say.
Student liaison report, did I see her?
Yeah. Yep, she's there.
Is she hiding behind her? Okay. Thought I saw her.
Well, between all the tables, I couldn't see her, so. All right, can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
Perfect, all right. So for the awareness of the audience, my name is Elsa Monologue. I'm a senior here at Newfound, and I am the elected voice of the student body. So far, we've had a fairly smooth transition back to school. The students are doing a great job of wearing masks and being responsible and aware of their personal health. We're utilizing workspaces across the school, including our makerspace room in 106, our library, the day and night lobbies, and our outdoor patio and classrooms. Our school clubs have started up again for the fall, some of which include Fit Club and Math Team. The students are especially looking forward to homecoming, which happens the first weekend of October. Our homecoming takes place outside around a bonfire in crisp 60-degree fall weather, and it's something that the athletes and non-athletes alike look forward to all year long. In terms of sports, all of our teams are very excited to be up and running with seasons that are packed full of games thanks to the hard work of our athletic director, Alex Soboloff. Lastly, as student representative, I think that it is important that I mention the significant absence of complaints that I hear from my fellow classmates during the school day regarding masks. We're just grateful to be back. Thank you.
Any other announcements or recognition?
No.
Any other announcements for you two down there? No. All right. Old business. Approval of the opening plan. I will open it for discussion. Go ahead, Fran. Wait a minute. It might be best if we just do comments around, because
Work the
for the
microphone down.
microphone, it's just going to be easier. If you guys don't mind. Thank you, Melissa. I'll try to speak loudly. Anyway, you may recall that I requested that this be put on the agenda for tonight, not as part of a total new plan, but as part of a discussion that I felt that there should be no changes to the reopening plan without specific board approval. That it should not be up to an employee or a committee to decide, we're going to require masks in such and such a school, we're going to require this and such and such. That is a decision that belongs being made by the board. I had also expressed that if need be, to have a 24-hour emergency meeting notice for a special meeting of the board, that I felt that is something that people elect us to do, to make those decisions, and to designate it to somebody who is not an elected person to be making major changes to the opening plan based on recommendations. I've spent a lot of time looking at the DHHS suggestions, recommendations, and it's kind of like trying to read through cottage cheese. They talk about only counting statistics that there was school transmission. Since we're given such little data about what has happened in 32, that was as of Friday afternoon, we don't know if they're staff members, we don't know if they're students, we don't know if they were symptomatic or asymptomatic, we don't know why they were tested, we don't know if they've been hospitalized, we don't know if multiple family members are part of that number. When I look at the Danbury numbers, something's going on there. And if we're not doing tracing and figuring out what's going on, we should be. We have 3 schools that have no infection according to Friday's data, but we're now going to mandate that all those kids have to wear masks. So the original purpose was that I felt this was the board that should be making this decision. That's why it was on the agenda. Had it not been on the agenda for that, and the interpretation now be that the new plan be taken up tonight instead of it just being proposed and voted on at the next meeting, troubles me. So I just wanted an understanding that this should be a board decision. Anything along this line should specifically be voted on. I have no problem with the committee making recommendations, but when I look at this, and you're recommending for schools that have had no cases, no proof of school transmission, I think it's a step too far. And I think if there is going to be a change, it should be specific to the board. You know, it says positive cases in school during infectious period, positive cases not in school during infectious period, then, and then we're looking at what the total positive cases is. Well, if they weren't in school at any time when they were infectious, they shouldn't be part of the number. So it's really only 17 cases that were positive, out of over 1,000 students, which is like a 1.7% rate. And Danbury is looking at 9%. There's something going on there, and I'd be more wanting to nail down exactly how that happened. So I did email and ask for additional information. I don't care to know anybody's name, but I think it's only right that we make decisions having facts, and the facts, are. Did they get it from the school? You know,
busy. So I just want to make it clear on, how it got here. And here's the,
Fran, can I just correct you?
yeah,
I designed the agenda as per the school board chair. It is my duty as the chair to design and come up with the agenda. The reopening plan was actually not really even on the first draft, and I had it moved to old business. I wasn't aware of your request. That wasn't sent to me in any way or form. It was put on there after discussion with Pierre in regards to a potential to maybe revise the opening plan. They had a committee meeting this morning, and so that's why it was put on there, just so you're aware of why and how it got on the agenda.
but this agenda came out
Yeah.
prior to that meeting
Correct, ma'am.
this morning. So,
Right, we knew that that meeting was occurring, and that's why I put it on the agenda, as I stated.
well, neither here nor there. There was mention of a student that has to quarantine for 20 days. Can you explain how they were required for 20 days?
Well, if
That's
a,
4 school weeks.
if a student is a household contact, so one of their siblings or their parents have COVID-19, the way the quarantining works is they have to start their 10 days after the last day, the 10th day of either their sibling or their parent. That's what DHHS tells us to do, unless they're able to isolate within their home and stay away from the person. And we've had a few of those. The older students have been able to do that more often. But so they have to wait out the time that their sibling or their mom or dad have finished their 10 days, then they start their own 10 days.
Has that person been quarantined or by DHHS? Because we don't have any legal authority to demand quarantine.
When they get called by DHHS and they're told they have to do that, and they're advised as to what those recommendations are by our school nurse as well.
Most of those household contacts are contacted by DHHS.
Yeah.
And they actually, the family members call us and tell us this is the
Okay.
date that they have, and we discuss.
So, Fran, they follow the COVID-19.nh.gov. There's pamphlets that they send out, and the school nurses do send those home with the students.
Right, I understand that, but in this reopening plan, under quarantine, we have a policy on unvaccinated individuals who are household contacts will be required to quarantine for 10 days. We have no authority to do that. If they're ordered to quarantine, that order comes from DHHS, not from us. Legally, you can't.
Well, just as Melissa said, we're following the DHHS guidelines, and that's stated in the first paragraph of our plan that the board approved. The changes to the plan have not been approved, and you make a good point that the board will decide, and I've said that all along. The board will decide. If the board doesn't want to approve the changes that I'm recommending tonight, that's up to the board. Everything in that plan was approved by the board on August 9th. So if the board doesn't approve,
Not the revisions.
no, that is a draft and that's not in place. That is pending board approval. That's why it's here tonight.
Do we have a notification from DHHS that we have a current cluster or outbreak?
Yes, we have.
Was that as of today? Because Friday, it did not show us having a cluster or an outbreak, it showed us as a medium exposure.
We have had notifications from DHHS I believe twice on clusters. They notify us and then they notify the parents that their children are part of that. And truthfully, there isn't much more that they do besides that. They don't, it speaks in the toolkit that they'll recommend further guidance or restrictions, but they haven't at this point done anything else besides that. Just continue what we're doing.
All right. Fran, can you move the microphone for Mr. O'Malley, please?
So I have a couple of questions or remarks about a couple of the pieces in the plan. I first want to say how rugged this is. I listened very carefully to everybody, regardless of what position you're taking, whatever it is that is your major concern in your life. It's one of you mentioned according to the circumstances and the place you are in that. And it is my opinion that everybody did a very, very substantial job of trying to express where they are in their life with this and how they are, as I've said, dealing with something that's very rugged, because what essentially we're all doing in the community is trying to cope. We're trying to get by. We all have very definitive opinions about how to do that. It doesn't change the fact that this was thrust upon us. And what we're attempting to do is to go through time with the very best of our ability and thinking of everybody to keep not only the kids safe, but the community safe, and the schools open. So thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you, regardless of what you said, for saying the way you said it. And I hope that we can continue coping with the civility that I've heard here tonight. I do believe that, Fran, you mentioned it is our responsibility as a board to make a decision about not just the plan, but about other things in the district that affect the teachers, the students, and everyone else. And I think you're right about that. But I think the only emergency that we have is COVID-19. And here we are tonight coping and dealing with that together. I also believe that last year we had a challenge unlike any that has ever been put in front of us. I know for a fact I've worked for 30 years in this district, and I saw a lot. I've never seen anything like this. Day after day, week after week, people had to think clearly and well as to what to do in an unprecedented challenge. We pivoted brilliantly, I believe. I think parents helped. Without a doubt, the parents stood by the decisions that were being made, and the difference is in the teaching and learning that had to happen because of this awful curse. And look at what we accomplished. A school year gone by, perhaps not with the ultimate quality of learning that we'd like, but our kids are okay, and we have moved on. And that was done by our CEO. We have got to have somebody in charge of the day-to-day, minute-to-minute data that's coming in, and also responding to people from the community who are asking questions and expecting more answers. From where I sat, we got all those answers last year. One by one, week by week, school by school, no matter what happened in or out. How many kids were homeschooled? How many kids were on remote learning? How many kids were in the hybrid? We did it. And we did it because someone was on the job, which we cannot be We don't meet often enough to be on the job for all of the income in response to the differences that occur every day. And we have to count on that group, not just the health management committee, but all of the people in the district bringing in information to the superintendent and to us so that we can focus a response. And I think that's what we should continue to do. I think we can increase the transparency. For example, in the plan under consideration tonight, it says that certain classes, grades, or schools may pivot to remote learning temporarily based on COVID-19 outbreaks. I understand that generally, but I wonder if some addendum can be added or brought forward that can make it more transparent in terms of what are the numbers for the outbreak that would require that temporary change in learning environment. What are the numbers? Where are the thresholds for that? Temporary is a tough word because it is the temporary status of things that have changed so often over the last month that have people a little confounded. So perhaps we can be a little bit more transparent about letting people know the time frame for what temporary is. And I'm sure that the teachers and the administrators would respect and expect that if in fact these outbreaks continue to the point where we have to replicate what we've done in the past. Those are my two serious concerns. Also, it says that we will consider all local data. I believe people are entitled to know what data it is we're selecting to look at. And that when we make changes, that should be part of the transparency. Thank you.
You know, I've wrote and scratched out and rewrote several things over the past couple weeks of what to say, what not to say, how to say it. Because I'm a parent, I'm a community member, I live here, I work here, I grew up here. But I will assure you, all of those, you know, the people that say you're ashamed of us or that we're irresponsible, this is a really hard task. This is a nationally debated topic. People are having to make career-changing choices over a topic we're being asked to talk about and make choices on. Like I said, I live here, I work here, I grew up here. Every phone call, email, text, a grab on the soccer field, I hear fear, I hear passion, confusion, anger in every single person that I speak to. We are tasked with ensuring a safe learning community. And if we've learned nothing else tonight, it's that that looks really different to every single one of us. We're being asked to put our personal views aside and act on what's best for our community. I will tell you that options equal empowerment. People feel empowered when they have options. We as a board are not your enemies. Believe me, when any one of us signed up for this, I can assure you, no one was hoping that COVID masks was going to be the topic of which we spent our time on. That's just my little piece. But then I had a question in the reopening plan under quarantine where it says, unvaccinated individuals who are household contacts of someone diagnosed with COVID-19 will be required to quarantine for 10 days from the date of last exposure. Who's tracking unvaccinated household members? Is it being tracked?
It is being tracked, but it's really requires self-reporting. So, I mean, it is true that in all those numbers you're hearing tonight, those are the numbers that are reported to us. It's entirely possible that there are numbers that are not, people not reporting to us. But it, typically, there's the conversation between the parent and the school nurse. That's how it starts. That's a good, very good question.
Okay. Can you hear me? Good, somebody did. Okay. I had a little problem with something on the plan, that vaccinated individuals showing no COVID-related symptoms who are household contacts of someone diagnosed with COVID-19 can attend school. Well, I think we've all heard that the vaccines are not 100% effective.
So with a mask, they can
With a
attend
mask,
while
yeah.
wearing a mask. That's
With a mask.
Those are the DHHS guidelines.
But the unvaccinated ones can't with a mask.
That's correct.
Okay. And that's assuming that the mask is going to prevent the spread of the germs. And I've read a lot of articles. Read a lot of letters, I've read a lot of emails, and I've done some research on articles, and I have not. The two things that I looked up, the studies, said that masks really didn't make a difference. That mandated masks did not make a difference in the spread. The germs are very, very, very tiny. The mask weave is very large. 80% of the germs are, at least 80 to 99%, depending on what you read, are an aerosol, which will go through the mask. The other thing is you can catch it through your eyes, which are not covered by the mask. So there's a lot of reasons why, there's a lot of ways in which the mask doesn't do what we hope that it does. A few other things. Let's see. The testing, not absolutely guaranteed either. So there can be false positive tests. And apparently the testing can't really pinpoint what the antibodies are, if they're from the COVID-19, the variant, or another type of flu. This is just the things that I'm reading. It doesn't make me very confident in the mask. And the other thing is the amount of carbon dioxide that accumulates in these masks over just a period of a couple of minutes, way, way, way beyond what these children are supposed to be allowed to breathe. If the masks were not mandatory, anybody could choose to wear the mask, choose to have their children wear the mask. When they do have the mask on, they're constantly touching them. They touch everything, and they touch those masks. So there's a lot of bacteria being spread in that way. These germs, like I said, they're very tiny, but they can also go a lot farther than 6 feet. The estimate is like 21 to 26 feet. So if you go in a grocery store and somebody has been in there breathing and they had COVID, those linger. And they don't fall to the ground very fast or the floor, because they're very, very light. And they say one of the studies said if you can smell smoke through your mask, then those germs can get through your mask. So I'm not all sold on the mask thing. The other thing is, I think that maybe we need to look at going back to some remote learning, because that seemed to help us quite a bit last year from spreading this. Maybe even with the mask, these things, this will spread quite a bit. If they're in proximity to each other, the children, it's going to spread.
But Sue, remember that last year we wore a mask all year and we had no spread.
Yeah.
No community transmission last year.
Yeah. But we also did go remote in many cases.
I know, but didn't the state of New Hampshire tell us we are not allowed to have an optional remote?
Not required to have an option.
Okay.
Not required.
I didn't remember what the. Right, it's not allowed to have, right, isn't that, yeah.
Not allowed to go remote?
No, unless if it's like you have like 6 teachers out in Danbury when there's 6 teachers, then I think you're allowed to apply for like a waiver with the educational group.
Department of Education. It's
Yeah.
important to understand there's really 2 different, when people speak about remote learning, there's really 2 different things. So, and our plan says we're not going to provide the remote option. So if you remember last year, parents and students could decide if they wanted to be remote. Like at the beginning of the school year, they said, we don't feel like it's safe. We don't want our child to go to school. We chose remote, and we offered that. We're saying we're not offering that. That was incredibly difficult for our teachers to pull off because they're also teaching to their students that were in the classroom at the same time. There is, and we discussed today with our health management committee, if necessitates, as in the plan here, we may have to switch, depending on conditions, to remote learning if we need to do that to continue teaching. So for example, an entire class in one of our elementary schools, or a high percentage of them, were to get COVID-19 and they could not attend school, then we would ask the teacher to teach those students via Zoom and provide their learning that way. That's what we're talking about when we talk about a remote option now is, and that's what it says in the plan, that'll be decided by the administration if that's the way we can provide the teaching and learning through that. Because either maybe the teacher has COVID, but is still healthy enough and capable to teach from home, you know, through live stream back to their students, or some way like that. That's what we talk about. But we're not offering remote as a whole like we did last year, where families could choose it as an option.
Sue, may I respond?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt
Okay.
anymore. So what I've heard you say is that one whole classroom is the threshold for that classroom going remote.
Well, no, we discussed that, and we haven't really, we decided to leave it on a case-by-case basis. So where this is all new for us, as you suggested earlier. So we haven't really made that decision. It depends on the conditions there, the conditions that are in place with the teacher and the teacher's ability to do that. So we discussed the case today, and we decided we were not going to do remote. We had a situation like that, and we had, 5 students that were out with COVID. But it could change. We could go to work tomorrow morning, and that number could change. It could be higher, and maybe we'll reconsider. But
so that's what I meant about trying to give some sort of information about the framework for threshold.
It is.
It's tough.
It is very
You're doing it,
difficult.
You're responding. You're reacting. But we know enough to know that our reactions are going to multiply. They have been over the course of the 42 kids who got sick.
Yep.
So to the extent that that framework may well include a threshold that says something like, well, not if one class gets sick, but if 3 get sick, 3 whole different classes. Now that's a case for remote learning for those 3 classes, or for that grade, or for that building. In other words, those are the thresholds I'm talking about.
And today's conversation was about supporting our families. And we knew that we had, many students that were still healthy, they didn't have COVID, and they were in school. And I said, if we close and go fully remote for that class, that was going to be a number of families that were going to have to find daycare for their children, either mom and dad were going to have to stay home from school, and that was going to create a hardship for those families. So we said, we think it's better to keep that class open, and let's keep those kids in school. And because otherwise, right now we have a large group where it's creating a hardship, because they either have COVID or they have to quarantine, and that's very difficult for the families. But so we chose to remain open in that case, and I think that looking at it through that lens of how to support our families, I think is very important, because we know that our families struggle with that. We've heard about that, instantly having to stop going to work and stay home with their child. They don't all have a grandparent that's there that can do that. So that's why we decided not to put a number on it. Believe me, last year, Mike, at this time in August, I was the one that wanted a black and white number. Give me a number, yes or no. But it turned out it didn't work that way. It really didn't. Every situation is different, and we would like to look at every situation, speak with the nurse, speak with the principal, and put our heads together, and ultimately, at the end of the day, do what's best for the children and for their families.
So in Danbury, you have a class that, what, half the children have?
That's correct.
Or have they tested positive, or are they?
They're either tested positive or they're required to quarantine, because they've been a direct household contact.
So it's a lot of kids who are, what, learning through Google?
Yeah, they're in their Google Classroom, and they're getting their materials. But then we have the other half of the class is there in person. That's just like what I was speaking to there. That's why we chose.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Remote would be nice for the ones who couldn't be in school. But if they can do the Google Classroom and stick with it and get enough help to do that,
they'll be
that's
back
fine.
pretty quickly. Now, those students aren't permanently out. They will return.
Go down the line. I just have a real issue with the unvaccinated individuals who are household contacts of someone diagnosed are going to be required to quarantine for 10 days. That's asking for someone's personal medical history, and I have a real hard time with that. It's no different than someone being vaccinated. Someone's vaccinated, they've been exposed, and it's obvious because there are these breakthrough cases coming through of people vaccinated and getting it. So there's no difference there. I'm not liking that quarantine part of it for unvaccinated individuals, and I'm backing up Fran. It's illegal to do. You cannot require someone that's unvaccinated to stay at home. You cannot do that.
Hi, I'm Tom Edwards, Hebron. So I'm relatively new to this role. When I came on, one of my jobs, or I guess my job is to protect teachers, the staff, enable really to provide education for them, good quality education. Like was mentioned earlier, never could have imagined this being something that we were talking about in terms of protection required with a pandemic. I'll just say that listening to a lot of great information and opinions and perspectives, it's really helpful. It's how to learn, move forward. In my opinion, so perfect is the enemy of good, right? So I'll address that in a second. But good, in my opinion, is better than nothing. So and I'm going to specifically talk about the masks. And also just to give some context, my father was a teacher his whole career. My mother was a special needs teacher. My wife is a teacher in the school district. I have 2 children that go to school in this district, in this building, who, by the way, have thrived over the last year and a half. Do they want to wear masks? Of course they don't. Do I want to make a decision that has all 3 of them wearing masks? Of course I don't. That would be ridiculous. However, I think Elsa mentioned it earlier in that she's not hearing complaints from children, and we should listen to somebody that's living it every day. And I'll tell you that they are thriving academically, athletically, okay? Which is, I think, due to a lot of hard work and decisions that have been made by this group even before I was on this committee. So we have a decision to make. I mean, I would hate to look back, and I don't want to get over dramatic, but you can fill in the blank about what might happen. We don't know, right? None of us have a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen. What we do know is the facts that already this year, we almost have as many cases as we had last year. That's just a fact. It's in 12 days. So I don't know how that can be confusing, quite frankly. And are masks perfect? No. Is the vaccine perfect? No. But might it be something that we can do to provide some protection to the children, to the teachers, and to other members of the community? Absolutely, in my opinion. And I hope people can respect that's my opinion. I will be absolutely supporting the plan with a clear conscience. So thank you.
Okay, so what I'm kind of hearing, I just want to remind everybody, our job as a school board is to to maximize the health and safety and well-being of all of the students and teachers that work here at the district. What I'm kind of hearing is we have some concerns with the quarantine piece of the plan and the remote, kind of the way it's written in the remote. I had an idea, I don't know what you guys think. My idea would be if a classroom or a school had to close and go to remote, I feel that we should have an emergency meeting and meet immediately to discuss that, potentially in a non-public due to medical potential information or confidential information about that school. But I'm kind of proposing changing that wording to an emergency, like in a 24-hour kind of period. Tomorrow night, we need to have a meeting because there's an outbreak in such and such classroom. We could always modify it that way. Just an idea. The quarantine piece, other suggestion is just going by the New Hampshire Division of Public Health Services because they have those two simple pages, whether you're this or you're that or you're this and what rules to follow. I mean, I have it up here. That's why I'm pointing to my computer. I have it up here. They're pretty simple. To me, it's pretty straightforward to follow versus having a specific thing regarding quarantine in the plan. I don't know. There was just options from what I'm hearing from everybody regarding their concerns. You guys, yes, Fran?
2 points. I agree with you completely about the quarantine. That should probably come out. That's DHHS. I can talk louder. Can you hear me? I think that section should completely come out because we can put it in here, but we have no authority for it. That can only come from DHHS. And I think we have to trust them that they will do that and notify somebody once we notify them. So I think that should come out. I think each change in this should be a separate item vote. I think we currently have the capability to cancel school for snow days, weather, emergency situations like the electricity went on and often there's no electricity at that school. So I would think that we could say, Danbury Elementary School is going to close for the day, for tomorrow, and we're going to go in there and we're going to clean, we're going to assess, we're going to set up going to Google Classroom. Google Classroom would not be considered remote learning. I don't believe. Currently, we can't just make a decision, well, we'll go into remote learning. I don't think in any case or scenario without further action legislatively. And I discussed this with somebody at a much higher pay grade than us today, specifically about if you can just say, we'll just go to remote learning, whether it's short term or not. We can say we're closing the school temporarily and going to Google Classroom. I think that's probably something in the Danbury scenario. I mean, if you're looking at, if the 10 number is correct, you're looking at now over 10%, which is trigger it unnecessarily. So I recommend that we take out the section about quarantine completely, and I recommend that the way we address it is to take each change up individually and discuss it and vote, or we draw on it.
So Fran, just a clarification, please. When you said that we should take out that part of the plan regarding quarantine, is that an example of all of the things, that's one of all of the things that we would vote on one at a time? Is that what you mean? Well, how many of those are there? And how do we know that a comment needs to turn into a vote? I mean, that is to say, you mentioned that losing electricity, snow days, those are emergencies. You're right. They are, and they're handled. There's a plan for that. There is a superintendent who is on top of that and will make the decisions about those emergencies because he has to. Because we cannot be there in time that's sufficient to do it well. And I think COVID is the emergencies that are already set. And I believe it is being handled very well. So to the extent that, and Melissa, you mentioned emergencies, I think that's a slippery slope for two reasons. It may not be possible to have the forum or have the entire board on an emergency basis available. And everybody, all of us, each one of us have a stake in everything that's done. We should all be there. I think also, the more that we do that, the more it becomes necessary to do that. And we begin micromanaging. And I don't think that this disease is something that gives us the opportunity to do that.
I see 4 sections. It's only 4 sections.
Do you want this back then? Do you need it? No. I just didn't know if there was a spot about where where are we at with substitutes? I know we were talking about getting like a district substitute. My concern is the more teachers we are out and we have the buildings open, what are our requirements for our substitute teachers? Because parents are called out, volunteers and staff are called out. Are substitutes specifically under that staff category?
That's correct. And we were able to hire through the ESSER funds, as you remember, that the board approved that we hired 3 permanent substitutes.
And have we had to use addition to those 3?
Oh, absolutely. And there's a shortage of substitutes. There was last week, I think maybe it was Friday, we didn't have enough substitute teachers. So even with that 3, I mean, with all the classrooms we have, 3 is not enough, but it is helpful to have 3 people that show up every day, 5 days a week, to help with that. But we still have a shortage of substitutes, but they're considered like teachers as far as all the, that's a good point you make about how do they fit into the plan. I would think of them as teachers.
Okay.
Do you guys have any other comments or? Sue, do you have any other comments?
So the mask requirement stays as it is, wearing masks will be optional for students and staff?
No, the new plan they have, it says wearing masks will be required for students and staff until further notice, is the new plan.
Oh, okay, I'm reading this. Apparently it's not. It's got all the italics, all the bold. Revised September.
On page 1.
Yeah, so it's got all the bold, but just above
Under
the
health
bold.
and safety, or maybe you have the old plan?
No.
They both were in there because one was with the last file of the August 9th meeting, the original one.
Pending school board approval at the bottom. because there's draft.
Yeah.
What's it say there?
September 8th, pending school
Yeah.
board
Okay, so this is what we're talking about, right? Health and safety.
Okay, well,
Right here.
oh, okay, all right. Oh, that's weird. Let me get this.
Here, middle school requires masks right now.
Middle school is currently, yes. And just to one point, Fran, you had mentioned that 3 of the schools don't have COVID. I sent out an email to the board members that we had our first case today in Bridgewater. So now we've had 4 of the schools
In one classroom.
in one classroom. Yep.
The state website shows, for the middle school, for example, which we show 6, they show that there are 7 cases recovered, there's no current on-site outbreak, which is as of Friday, and that there is a low transmission, which doesn't seem to trigger.
So you still talk about the middle school?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, their numbers are lagging behind a bit, but we still, you know, we set the 14-day window for when those students, and I can't remember the exact date for the middle school. We have so many of those where we would return the mask under the old, you know, the current plan. But we quickly had many cases there at the middle school.
I think we are too premature on making this decision to throw everybody into a mask mandate. While I don't particularly like any required mask mandate for any of the classes, I can live with just classes that have been exposed, but I cannot support this plan, any part of it, as long as that's in there. If you want to make some changes, try to make it a little bit less intrusive. You know, I can go some changes, but I cannot support this as long as that's in there at all. There are things I think we should be doing. I think we should be offering all of the Danbury parents to have their children tested at our expense and send somebody there to do all of the testing. Because I imagine that there's a lot of parents that are very concerned, and I think that would be a prudent thing to do. I think taking a day or 2, closing it, get in there, completely scrub it, unless you can come up with there's one family and they're all in the same family, there's something going on in Danbury that is totally out of the norms of infection. Totally.
Did they have a gathering
Not just,
just before school started? Did they have a gathering over there that brought a lot of kids together?
I don't know.
Yeah.
so we know where Fran stands. Does anybody want to make a motion for anything regarding the reopening plan that was presented to us by Superintendent Kuchar that was brought forward from the Health Management Committee? I make a motion that we take section, the health and safety section, and that we authorize, as a board, authorize masks to be required in classes where there has been a direct positive case only. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Yes.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, effectively, a vote on this may disable us from making a vote on the overall plan.
But that's the motion she's put out. That's what she's requesting as a motion.
Well, wouldn't you make a motion on the overall plan with that revision in the end?
You could.
Yeah.
You can make whatever,
I mean,
she can
could.
make whatever motion she would
Yeah.
like.
So she's made a motion to revise the.
Just the health and
Right.
safety section of it. regarding masks. That's her motion, that's the motion on the table that has had that emotion and seconded.
It was seconded.
Yep, by Sue.
Yes.
So we are open for discussion regarding this one motion.
It's my understanding, like, so Fran's saying by class, but in your middle school and your high school, you can't really do by class because they're all moving so rapidly between classes, mixing classes. And that's why it was by grade. When we switched, it was 7th grade first, then it was, okay.
That's absolutely.
Most of them are vaccinated. How many of the high school students and how many of the middle school students are vaccinated?
We don't know that, and we can't
It's
ask,
confidential
that's
information.
confidential.
You can't, that's like you guys saying about the quarantine, like, you can't ask.
You can't ask that.
Well, they know a percentage of the state, they don't have a percentage of the school.
No.
No.
We have it by town. We can look it up by town. I've done that, but that doesn't really reveal much to us because you don't know, you know what I mean? It gives you a category like 12 to 19-year-olds with a percentage. Well, that means how many of those are middle school, how many are high school? You don't know. We have high schoolers from all of the towns.
How many are in private school?
Right. So it's not very helpful.
So I have a question. So if, right now, how many schools, who isn't required to wear masks right now, approximately, of all the schools and classes? I mean, is it the majority that are masked currently?
Right now, we're fully masked at the high school and the middle school. And we have one classroom in Bridgewater that started today, and we have 2 classrooms at Danbury.
So basically, I think it,
None at Bristol or New Hampton at this time.
so I mean, essentially, we're getting almost on a daily, if not, you're sending messages out roughly on a daily basis, every other daily basis, right?
That's correct.
So why would we expect this to slow down or stop? Let me ask this question, right? Let's just step back for a second. I really want to know why anyone would expect that to reverse, okay? I'd love to hear an answer to that, okay? Because again, we have 42 cases this year, we had 50 last year for the whole year. It's been 12 days, okay? We have an opportunity now, okay, to not make it so every single day you're pushing it out 10 days or whatever it is, 14 days. I mean, that's just like, that's chaotic. You know, if we're talking about the kids and the teachers and the administration, what people are trying to spend time on, why would, or somebody convince me why I wouldn't expect that's going to continue to happen? Because right now, sitting here, I do expect that to continue to happen if we don't do something about it, okay? Or we could do something about it, try to get things back under control, okay? Because right now, it's not under control. I don't know, would anybody say it's under control? It's not.
It's accelerating.
It's accelerating, okay? So we can talk all day long, but it's pretty simple. It's not like rocket science, okay? We have a chance to slow this thing down. It's not perfect, all right? But it's something, right now, if we don't do anything, we're going to keep having these, you know, we're going to keep getting the emails. Pierre's going to have to keep saying to people, and talk about responsibility for parents. At the end, everybody notice what's at the end of every message? And by the way, please don't send your kids to school if they have symptoms. Like, that message is, I guess, apparently not getting through, you know, for the 42nd time that it's been sent out, you know? I don't know if it's lost on everybody, but you read that, right? What does that mean? It means, come on, community, help out here, you know? So I just don't understand why we wouldn't take the opportunity to try to get ahead of this thing. We're already a little bit behind, but try to get ahead. What's going on with the football team right now? No one even brought that up. No one brought up what's going on with the football team. Anyone know?
They don't have enough players to play.
Oh, so
The football team does not have enough players to play right now.
That's a positive test, not anything to do with infection.
anyway, so
We are never going to get away from that, ever. Because the parents who sent their kids to school, their kids had a little sniffle. Just like in years past, you have allergies, you have the common cold. You didn't keep your kid home if they just had the sniffle. So they test them. And when they test them, they find have herd immunity, might have a little sniffle, and it becomes, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. Have there been any of these students hospitalized?
Yep, exactly.
It's confidential.
Well, what if,
Well, we have a staff member that was hospitalized. I think that means something. I don't think it's different.
Sick. You're not any different.
she said there were other things involved too,
Right, but initially,
but I
it
don't
was in the
know.
hospital.
Yeah.
But I think back to your point, Fran, you talked about,
No, you did not listen to the email. I was recently hospitalized.
Right, but she got COVID significantly before school started.
no,
And
I
because of
think that's
complications
the
of
day
other things, she was hospitalized. I read it very carefully.
it was 2 days before school started, but that, but to your point earlier, in your discussion about, looking back at Danbury, it's a really good point. And what's going on out there, and should we go, because it was discussed in our committee today, should we put Danbury in remote? That was discussed today. We look at all options, and one of what we came up with, let's go to mask first. That would be the first step, go to universal masking and see how that works. That is less restrictive than telling kids they have to stay home and put those families in difficult positions. We heard that all last year, how difficult it was for our families to make arrangements to care for their children. I mean, when we closed the school for a week last year, and that happened quite a few times, I would get emails from families telling me how difficult that was. These are people that work hourly jobs that when they're not at work, they're not getting paid. And they can't pay their bills. I'm very sensitive to that, and that's why today, when we said, if we go universal masking, let's see what the numbers look like in a couple weeks in Danbury. That was our thought process today. So we think this is a logical step to control, like Tom says and Mike says, it's out of control. It went crazy last week for us. And every day, we went from 32 to 42 today, just like that. Seemed like in 2 hours. But I think, Fran, to your frustration, and we were as well, about the people sending their kids to school sick, I think the messaging is starting to work, because I'm hearing more of a couple cases at the high school, but they haven't been in school for 3 or 4 days, which is great. That meant that they weren't in school, we didn't have to do anything else, we wouldn't have to extend the mask mandate, but it's sounding like more people are keeping their kids home. I don't have data to support that, but that's what I'm hearing in my office more. That I think people are getting that message. And I asked Mr. Horius here at the high school to speak to his students about that, the importance of that. And I think the students who are on athletic teams realize how careful they need to be, because they can jeopardize their season very quickly if a bunch of them get COVID.
Madam Chair, I move the question. I move the question. Can we vote on the motion?
I just wanted to, well, this is a little on the side, I guess, but what if we went to universal masking for 1 month, and at our first meeting of next month, we see, have the numbers for us and see where it has gone, if anywhere, if it has been effective or.
Well, that's what we say,
That's
what we said in the plan. We would monitor, and to see if it works.
So would that put it as an agenda item, next meeting, to review the numbers, review the rec?
I feel like this, personally, just putting the agenda together, I feel like this is going to be one of those things that is going to be kind of a standard on the agenda for this entire, I'll be honest with you, I think it should be on the agenda as the chairperson that designs the agenda all year, pretty much, because things are going to be changing.
I do believe it needs to be looked at constantly, because things are ever changing.
Yeah.
But I will say the 10 days is a serious false hope for some of these kids. When I say, oh, you're in a mask, till the 14th, nope, it's 21st, nope, that's harder. as a parent to continue to say, nope, today's not the day, you're back. So maybe setting a timeline. We are doing this for this time period. We will, and you know, as Mike spoke about, we will review these specific points. The case count. What is our high school, our middle school, our sports teams? What does that all look like? But also, you know, in previous meetings, it was brought up, you know, that here you were working with other superintendents localized. Are they seeing similar trends? Are they seeing cases? Did they start out one direction, go to another? Did they start out at masks and then were able to go the other way? What are, like, because we play all these schools in sports, are they seeing similar trends?
They are, it's increasing, and around the Lakes region, it's about 50-50 right now, which districts are requiring masks and which are optional. So it's very localized, just like tonight, and people are making those decisions.
So if we
I mean,
go-
even at Plymouth, which, you know, has 9 districts in that SAU, there are some that are requiring masks and some that are not. The different communities and their boards made different decisions.
So if we go a month, Sue suggested we can get a report 2 weeks or halfway towards that threshold in our next meeting, and then, of course, 2 weeks later.
Yep, we're collecting data every day. That would be very simple for us to report.
Right, we can look at it at our next meeting, but not make a decision to
Right,
stop
right.
until the second meeting in our second Monday in October or Tuesday, or however
Whatever.
that works out.
So another month from now, basically a month from now.
Yeah, but look at them at our next meeting as well. I don't know, would that work for you? No.
We're masking kids that are in schools that have had no exposure.
So, all right, let's end discussion on the motion. Can someone read, Ruth, can you read the motion back?
All right, this is what I've got. That Fran makes a motion to take the health and safety section and reauthorize. Go ahead, Fran.
To formally authorize
Authorize.
that masking would be required only when there are specific transmission in any particular class.
Only when there are specific
Transmission in specific classes.
transmissions in a classroom,
Specific classes.
in a specific class.
Okay. So now we've had discussion. Let's vote on just that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
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 Abstentions? The motion has not passed. Okay. Are there any other motions to be brought forward regarding the reopening plan?
I make a motion that we remove the section on quarantining about unvaccinated individuals. I don't think we can legally do that.
And I will second that.
Any discussion on that section of quarantine on the reopening plan?
Yeah, what effect does that have on the quarantining that's going?
I
by
think
this-
the first paragraph that states that we follow the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services guidelines, which reports you back to those 2 pieces of paper that outline information, outlines what you're supposed to do.
I think,
I still have a question.
Sorry.
yeah,
If this were to pass, what type of a handcuff would it put on the quarantining we're doing, not associated with the unvaccinated?
I think it would be very confusing for our parents and our families. Just like what we have going on in our state right now with mixed messages and all these other things, that would just add to the confusion and make it difficult. It's our nurses are on the front line of that. They're the ones who are having those conversations with those families, and it would put us in the middle of DHHS and this plan. And I don't think that's fair. It's already a very difficult job to be a school nurse right now, and that would make it tougher. And I don't know why we wouldn't want to support the DHHS. I know you have personal feelings about you can't require a quarantine or not, but That's been what, we have followed that guidance, all the way back to, July 2020, really. We've gone all the way back and we've stood by that. And that's, if you think of all of the guidance that is not in place this year, we're not doing contact tracing, we're really simply quarantining and we're wearing masks. Those are really the only two, and then the mask on the school bus, compared to all of the other things. And I sent an email to the board about that to put that into context. If you remember last year, if you were sitting next to a student who had COVID, you had to stay home. You had to quarantine. We're not doing that. Right now, you're wearing a mask, and you can continue. The plan is about keeping kids in school. But the quarantine, they haven't let go. And remember, the quarantine is only for household contacts. Only for household contacts. You don't have to quarantine by being exposed in school. The only time is if your mom or your dad or one of your siblings. So it's
Unvaccinated, medical segregation, any way you cut it.
So, do you have any other questions?
No.
I have a question on the root.
Any other discussion regarding the quarantine
Quick question on the root of that. Is that information that is voluntarily provided by?
I didn't hear the first
Is
part.
that information that's voluntarily, I can't say the word. Voluntarily provided. I'm assuming that would be the case, right? So it's not like, so if somebody's been vaccinated or not, is that like a question that the school nurse is asking when they're investigating and learning information,
Yes.
right? So it's voluntary information,
That's right.
right?
That's correct.
And that's how it's been done since the beginning,
Right.
as far as I understand, right?
Yeah, and all of that information that you're referring
That was
to,
before they came out with vaccinations. That was before that. This is specifically stating unvaccinated individuals need to be quarantined. And we cannot legally do that. And we are segregating people. And you're pointing out those people that are unvaccinated. It needs to be dismissed from this plan. I am so totally against this, and it's going against every grain in my soul because you're asking for somebody's personal medical history.
Any further discussion?
If that language is taken out, is that essentially in the guidelines? So it's just that we're not calling it out, correct? You know what I'm saying?
well, it would still be in the DHHS
It's in the- and we
guidelines,
reference
but I
those.
think it would put our nurses into a very difficult position.
So this is more stringent than DHHS requires.
No, it's exactly
It's
what
the same thing.
DHHS.
Then why is it there? It's redundant. And it's something we do not have the authority to mandate, but DHHS does.
It's supporting what DHHS says, which is what we've done all along, since the very beginning, last July 2020.
We said in the first paragraph that we support DHHS. Why are we also putting it in as if we can mandate?
It's put in there to support the nurses when they have those conversations. All of the documentation has been sent out to the families ahead of time, and it has that in there, including the document, the paperwork from DHHS. Has that in there.
Just get rid of it. The difference is we're now dealing with vaccinations. Before, we were not. Vaccinations only came into play in the past couple months. When this whole thing started, vaccinations were not even on the radar when they started asking people if they were tested positive or not and quarantining. The only difference now is that you're throwing in somebody being unvaccinated, and I just don't feel good about that at all on any level.
So the discussions between the nurse and the family, there's other medical information being asked and provided and so forth, right? So this one just seems to be one that people don't feel comfortable with, but they're comfortable with other medical information being provided. You know what I mean? It's really, it's under the bucket of medical information. It's no
And it's
different.
private,
Well,
between the
I'm
nurse
asking a
and the
question.
student
The point,
and the family. That information's not shared.
is that information going to be, so,
I don't like it.
It's not being, it's not being shared.
It's not being shared, right? I mean, we're essentially sort of you talk about segregating, we're segregating a piece of medical information. You know, like, because it's what it is. The nurse is having that conversation about other symptoms or situations, right? Medical information with the family member. I just want to make sure that's the way I see it.
Right. The nurses have all of the confidential information. I mean, they're probably the ones who know more about our students than anybody else, including the principal.
So clearly on this one, there's just sensitivity about vaccination or not.
Okay,
All right, move the question.
so let's move forward with a vote to remove the quarantine section on the reopening guidance that was brought forth by Superintendent Boucher. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, sorry, so
Aye.
3 ayes, yep. All those opposed say nay.
Nay?
Abstentions?
What can I make an extension and a suggestion? No, that's fine. That's fine. Nope, it's fine. Nay,
We're going with a nay. I'm a nay as well, so the motion does not pass. The motion wouldn't have passed if she let it stay. Correct.
Right.
It would have, because there's 3 that would have been in favor.
So the quarantine language remains.
Remains, yep.
Regarding the school opening plan, are there any further motions for approval of the reopening plan?
I make a motion that the section under academic needs, where it says certain classes, grades, and schools may pivot to remote learning temporarily based on COVID-19 outbreaks in particular groups determined by the school and district administration. Number 1, I don't think it's legal for us to go to remote as an option. And number 2, that should be a decision made by the school board. Shouldn't be something on Friday afternoon, let's Monday go to remote.
Is there a second of the motion? So, being no second of the motion, it's dead on the floor. Are there any further motions regarding the revised reopening plan?
I have a question.
Yes.
So wherein the plan that we're voting on are the revisions Sue mentioned regarding reporting the data? Is there language that we have come to that we're clear that if this plan passes will occur? Where is that?
Currently,
Well, somebody could include that in a motion.
Currently, it's in the monitoring statement, correct? That you
Right,
mentioned
and we,
earlier?
we included that, the statement about monitoring.
Right, until our meeting in October.
Can we get copies of those with the names redacted?
Copies of what?
The exact form is copied in the
What do you,
toolkit that you're supposed to fill out and submit to the state. Additional resources. State of New Hampshire, sample child care K-12 school student close contact line list. It has
that is done, that reporting is done online. Ann Landry does that for us.
exposure your date. I don't care about the names, but we should know that there's contact tracing going on.
There is no contact tracing going on.
Well, there should be. And if we're gonna do something, that's what we should be saying we're gonna do, contact tracing, so we can figure out.
Well, that's not what was recommended by DHHS, so we're following their guidance.
Is DHHS even doing contact tracing right
No,
now?
there is no
They've
contact
stopped,
tracing.
right?
They're
Yeah, they've
not,
stopped this
the
stuff.
contact tracing was conducted by DHHS last
They
year.
stopped it like 6
So they've
months
said,
ago,
we're
didn't
not
they?
doing contact tracing, that's why we're not doing contact
They
tracing.
don't have the staffing.
So, anyway, to your point, Mike, I think somebody could make a motion and include a report out on data at the next two meetings, at every meeting if you want. So if you wanted that.
To be revisited at our
each
second
board
meeting
member.
in October,
Right.
and to have reports at our next two meetings.
I think you could work that into your motion.
And really, the next there's already some classes that are already in those masks until
Right.
that next meeting date. It's not going to be a change for
Because we meet
Certain-
September 27th.
September 20th.
Yeah, but there should be something that says that there's some kind of a,
Is it,
that we're gonna look back at
No, no,
this,
no,
it's not
I-
just a blanket.
No, and I agree with
Yeah.
that, but what I'm saying is for some groups, classes, grades, schools, they're already there till the 24th, which is a Friday.
Right, that's
You have your
correct.
Saturday, your Sunday, so it's not going to be we're trying to look at this as, in as many groups as we can and how to make it work for everybody. So if maybe we say we're gonna look at it, we're gonna see where things are, did things change for good or for bad? If we're still wearing our masks at school and we're still having all these cases, clearly it's not at school that it's happening. There's lots of other opportunities.
we're going to have it as a standing agenda item, as you mentioned earlier, right? Is it needed to, is that enough to say every meeting we're going to be monitoring it, which we're going to be doing anyways, I would imagine.
Well, we'll be reporting.
And evaluating, and I think it's important to know, this group wants people out of masks. That's why we started this year's plan without masks, right? So the end result we want to get to is we want to get to where we're not wearing masks, and that's how we started this year.
And I think if we have a specific timeline as to when it will, because it just says until further notice. So, until the next meeting date, and even if we list those within the plan, because I know sometimes it's not on the top of your list is to find out when the next school board meeting is. So if we have those dates listed within this plan, then it's forward, it's transparent, it's evident. Parents don't have to go looking for the information. It's there. We're going to look at it at this meeting, and this meeting, and this meeting. And hopefully sooner than later, we can say we're done with our reopening plan. Here's what we're, and trying to feel confident in that and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, because we did remove things. Kids can go out to morning recess. That was a huge piece that we were able to get back. They are on their sports teams. They are in their buses. They are, meeting and having assemblies or field trips if they, when the time comes for those situations. They're back in lunchrooms. They're not sitting with the same 22 kids that they've sat with and enjoyed or not enjoyed the company for the last 6.5 hours. And I think sometimes we just have to take the small pieces we can and continue to plug away at how we can make this work for everybody.
I think it's reasonable that we could put language in there, Britta, stating that, and we can put the dates of the meetings, that at each of the meetings, the administration will review the COVID data with the board. I think I'd have no problem.
And I think you're right there on that first bullet point of health and safety, where it says wearing masks will be required for students and staff. I think you're right, just transparency, right? Every meeting until the end of this year, so therefore we're held accountable for reviewing that every week.
So effectively, a sunset clause for passing this mask mandate is unnecessary because we will reach a point in time where you report to us that things are so much better that the Health Management Committee is recommending a difference to the plan? Is that how it
That
would
very
work?
well could happen. That's correct.
Could it say, this decision will be revisited by the board on October blank? The information, new information will be reviewed in whatever, September something, and October. It'll say it right out there, if anybody wants to know, it's right in the plan.
So I think it's September 27th, and then the first one in October is an odd one because of Columbus Day.
Right,
Isn't
so it's
that
October
Tuesday?
12th, right on a Tuesday, and then October 25th.
The board will review any new information on September 27th and October
Well, it's going to be moved to a Tuesday, right?
Right, that would be
12th.
October 12th.
That's a Tuesday,
Right,
yeah.
Yep.
And we'll somehow or other revisit the decision or reconsider the decision, or, because it could be the same, but it would be revisited anyway.
Does somebody want to bring forward a motion?
Okay.
I have no issue making the motion, but I need to be clear on the goal. So if in a motion I said that the continuation of the mask mandate is dependent upon information provided to the board on meeting dates such and such,
Yeah.
is that a workable proposition?
Well, it's workable that we will, I think Melissa has already indicated that she plans to have COVID-19 or reopening plan on the agenda at every meeting. So which would then trigger me to make updates to the board and recommendations to the board. So I would.
Then why do we need a motion at all?
Well, right now, we're asking for approval of
Because
universal
there's
masking.
changes. There's changes in this document. We have
Oh,
to-
I understand the motions that have been made, but regarding how the data is reported to us every 2 weeks, that's going to happen by virtue of having this plan on the agenda every 2 weeks.
I agree.
So it's redundant.
I agree. That's what yeah.
So if you look at this online, it'll just say until further notice with no explanation of what's going to go on. So you may get some calls, I don't know.
Well, how do you want to phrase it to avoid that?
I don't know, I would just add a sentence that said, that says that the school board will review the information at each subsequent meeting and possibly, and may revisit the decision.
I think having the dates in there would be beneficial.
My only question on that would be how many dates out do you want to, how far out do you want to go with dates? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's my only concern about it. I like the specificity of it. But that's my only, I was thinking the same thing. I just don't know. We don't want to go too far out. We're hoping it's sooner than later.
When we refer to board meetings, we typically refer to second and fourth Monday.
Right.
Right? We could do that without having to list,
But October is the one odd
except for
day
October.
that we have Columbus
Yeah,
Day.
and we would,
It's kind of our leap year.
So if you put those two dates, and then we revisit it on October, whatever it is, we can always, well, I don't know, we can always revise it to have more dates, but I think you're right, it should, the
Yeah.
dates.
We have accountability if
School
we
board
put that it
meetings.
will be on the agenda every meeting. And
Yeah.
we'll know that will happen. And then we won't have to say
Yeah.
either a specific date of a meeting or any kind of how far out to go. I think that will, that solves it. I mean, monitoring solves it at a high level. We're just taking monitoring to a little bit of a next level. What that means is it'll be an agenda item on every meeting.
and I can say that I think to Britta's point, not everybody knows when the meetings are. We can include that the meetings are held on
those, yeah. that's
second
good.
and fourth, with the exception of
Holiday.
Holidays.
the holidays. I think that's reasonable.
So it sounds like we have consensus, we're just looking for language.
Oh, yeah. I can certainly add that. If the board agrees to approve the plan, I can include that one sentence in there, just the way you spoke about it.
Do we need a motion to that?
A motion to approve the reopening plan as amended by the board.
Seconded. Sounds like a motion.
Good girl.
You need to make the motion, Mike.
9:30.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion?
That's funny.
Okay. Yeah? No?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstentions? Yep, there's a request for a count, so can we do a roll call? We'll switch to a roll call vote. Sorry. Alexandria,
Aye.
Bridgewater,
Aye.
Bristol,
Nope.
Danbury, aye. Groton,
Aye.
Hebron,
Aye.
New Hampton. No. That is a 5-2 vote. The motion is passed. Moving on to new business. We have the signing the DOE 25 and the MS 25, which is here. They're the school financial reports. I'll sign them and start passing them around, but we need to sign every year.
And our signatures obviously denote consent, so we don't need a motion or vote on
Right.
this, just the signatures.
Yep.
So it's a,
Okay. Next, the ratification of the collective bargaining agreement. We have the collective bargaining agreement that was approved by the teachers union at this time, and it is being brought to us with the changes for approval. So I need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, I need a second.
A second.
2 seconds. Any discussion regarding the collective bargaining agreement?
I have a question.
Yep.
Last year, the comment was made that the tax cap would not cover the increase from the teacher's contract. Has Robin calculated if this increase is in the contract is going to be greater than the tax cap?
I have, unfortunately, I do not have that exact number at this point. I can.
But it was under the tax cap.
It's under the tax.
It is.
From the yearly,
From
yeah.
the previous year.
Yes.
It is?
Yes.
Yes.
We made sure of that. With the changes in, that were savings.
And this will go on the SAU website tonight, correct?
Not tonight.
Probably not tonight.
Tomorrow.
Probably tomorrow. I don't think anybody else is at the SAU office at 9:40 at night, but I could be wrong.
No, you're right.
Okay. So, let's see. You moved and Sue seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nope.
Abstentions? Okay. So next, could you pass this to Sue, please? Thank you. There was, on the last page, we had an MOU agreement with the teachers union to change the teacher evaluation plan to start that this year at the request of the teachers, so that the team, they can make some modifications this year, and the team can already start meeting to make some positive changes to the teacher evaluation plan. So I need a motion to approve that MOU.
second.
Any further discussion regarding the MOU? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, next. To begin our discussion, we forgot also got to modify the agenda
No, for
to
what?
add on hiring new staff.
Oh, okay. You did.
Please modify the agenda to add F in section of new business of hiring. So moved. Okay. Sorry, I just noticed that. D, New Hampshire School Boards Association call for resolutions. Have you guys been getting the emails with the resolutions? No. You don't get the School Board Association emails? I think only the person that's on that committee gets them. No, everybody gets them. I get the emails from the School Board Association.
They're just calling for them.
Right,
they're
they're
like
calling for
calling for
resolutions, but we need to start reviewing them because the meeting's October 16th?
I believe that's correct.
Yes, so we have 2 more
I'm done.
meetings that we need to review them, and we'll need to vote on them on our October 12th meeting. So Tom has information to go to the October 16th as our delegate. So just, I will try to remember tomorrow to send out a link of those to everybody so you have them so you can start reviewing their positions and whatnot for the school board association, for resolution. Let's see if I remember. E, modification of agenda to include school board committee updates. You guys are so lucky that I do all these research and training things. So I thought it would be a good idea to add on the school board, our agenda, every committee to kind of just do a quick one-liner. I know, I knew some people, but sometimes you guys bring stuff up from a committee for us to vote on, and it's like, we're like, where did this come from? I just think it would be good so that we can stay in the loop and it's a little bit transparency, because I know a lot of public don't read the minutes from committees or things like that, but I would like to have, I'm gonna start on the agendas, having just a little, each of the committees that are making changes and doing things, to just bring a blurb to our meeting.
As well as having us receive the minutes.
Right, we received the minutes,
Right.
but I'm trying to help with some of the transparency as well. A lot of other school boards do it that way, from reviewing agendas and things. And I thought that would be a positive thing for us to do. Should we vote on that?
What you said, thanks.
I know, but it's usually the,
It can be quick.
I mean, it can be quick, but usually it's the facilities one where you guys will bring something up and I'm
No, I
like,
understand.
you know, it's like, oh, really?
I know,
That's
I know.
an issue?
I'll split it with you. We cover a lot.
Yeah, I mean, facilities covers a lot. I mean, policy committee brings us a lot of policies
Yep.
consistently, but, you know, I just think it would be good for us all to keep that information. Hiring new positions?
So I have 2 resignations that I'm going to first ask the board to accept. Hannah Grady, elementary music, and John Sullivan, high school physical education.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
So I'd like nominate or approve the hiring of Maureen McAuliffe, high school and middle school, shared high school, middle school literacy specialist, Mitchell Philippe, elementary physical education teacher, Melissa Katlowski, elementary music teacher, and Kristen Note, Bristol Elementary, Title I.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
And just one other note, not requiring a vote, but Reagan Kiernan has requested a transfer to the high school for physical education, and she will, we've agreed to that, and she'll be transferring to the high school at the end of this week.
Okay. Board member comments? Yes, Fran?
Thank you. I see under the report of Jeanette Shed, where it's mentioned that under summer projects, that
there was, at the elementary level, school counselors met for a plan titled Social Emotional Learning, Pulling the Pieces Together, as well as training in Amplify. I would like to have detailed copies of the curriculum that those two programs cover. And I would also like to know if we use the Choose Love program in any of our schools.
I don't believe, are we, that was not mentioned on that.
You're gonna have to speak up, I'm sorry. I'm trying to recall when the elementary school counselors presented. It sounds like it was working at elementary level, but not as much at middle as it's at K level. And Amplify would be one of the pilots they would train in it. So it would be like a curriculum with the training. But it was great work with the school counselors, and they actually asked to present to the entire 18, trying to look K-12 alignment, and all 4 elementary school counselors really worked hard at things like behavior, how to collect the data across the board the same way. Of course, the results will be different. In regards to behavior interventions, what are we doing to best support the students socially emotional? And the idea was sent from middle school to here and high school. So it's just a great opportunity for everyone to hear from the elementary school counselors and do a phenomenal job.
Yeah, so we certainly can provide those, your initial request, we can provide that to you.
They did a whole package for us. Thank you. And here, where would we find a detailed curriculum for the district?
That's a good question. Where are the, so at the building level, the curriculums?
So I know at the high school, I've been collecting from the chair of the DLA and of the math. I could share, but I don't know if it's somewhere on the district website. That's the one of my.
I'd have to do some research on that. I can
And
report
that's
back
something
to
you're
you.
spearheading and working on? Yes. Okay. I mean, because you can see in every single school, elementary, you read the math issues, what you DLA, all of that. But yeah, it would be nice to have K-12 where you could just look and what is the curriculum. Thank you. And my last question is, I noticed in several of the school reports, they talked about the testing that was going on. I think one of them was last week, the other was coming up in the next couple of weeks. Will there be a detailed briefing to the board when they get those results?
Yeah, I expect them.
And I emailed you today about the statistics for the district profile that technically is supposed to be on our website. Will that be being put up on our website?
I saw that right before I came over here today. I'm going to look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that we have a high school profile that's updated. Just looked at last week. But we will look for the district profile. Because I know that is posted on the DOE website. I think we forwarded that back.
I sent you a copy of the RSA. It's
Yeah.
also required that there be a listing on our SAU website and school board website.
Okay.
I have a statement I'd like to make, so I'm on record about this.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to preface what I'm going to say is that this board is comprised of 7 individuals with 7 individual thoughts and opinions. And I feel that you need to know how we feel and that we do not all think the same. So this is my statement. I'm going on record, and that way there's no question from anyone out there in this world. There's no emergency order. There are no state laws. There are no state mandates. This needs to stop. It's proven that masks do not work. And it's obvious with the policies set forth these last 3 weeks that even with individuals wearing masks, that individuals are testing positive. The DHHS has come out with recommendations. There's nothing that says we, the school districts, have to follow them. We should be making decisions based on the whole local community, not a one-size-fits-all. I am personally disappointed that decisions are based on political science rather than real science, and the decision to wear a mask is a personal choice, a parent's choice, not a policy.
Anybody else have any board member comments? Ditto? Okay. Moving along, to public
Cheater.
comments.
Public comments, you said?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I'm like that. Oh, I can speak on it, I don't need that.
I was gonna say, first of all, as far as the masking goes, it's a freedom of choice. The masking policy doesn't work. Obviously, the high school has been masked now for over 2 weeks, and you're still showing positive tests again. Wearing a mask isn't working, that's number one. Number two, the policies that you keep referring to, that you're following their guidelines, be on record. You're going down a slippery slope, because when that same institution starts mandating vaccinations for kids 6 and up, you're gonna have a hell of a fight on your hands, and I'll be leading it.
I didn't expect too much different from the board tonight. Heidi, thank you. I always knew how you stood anyway. Fran, thank you. I just want to state a couple of things. You can kind of make numbers say exactly what you want or anything you want. For an example, Heidi, you represent over 2,000 voters just in Bristol. But yet we have other towns here, Hebron, Groton, you know, what do you have? Bridgewater, you know, 500, 700,000 people. You think it's unbalanced? Yeah, I do. You know, Heidi's got 1 vote, and she represents about 3 of your towns. That's unfair, all right? That's not right. The next thing is this board, I think, has made a grave mistake. You're not servicing these kids. You're more worried about your teachers and your staff. That's what you're more worried about. Them. And I think it's wrong. And also, Elsa, I think you should have a Dropbox and have it take a poll from your student friends and just ask them, do you guys like wearing masks? You want to wear masks? You don't want to wear masks? Simple, blind poll, and just ask them. And then you're going to find the truth that comes out with the kids. And other than that, the masks don't work. You know it. You know it. You just know it. And still, you approve this plan. And then let me go back to this plan, this new revised plan. All right? You're putting the vaccinated against the unvaccinated? How dare you? You know, I might as well be black and you might as well be white. That's exactly what you're doing. Exactly. You know, and I'm telling you, it's wrong. Absolutely dead wrong. And you talk about HIPAA? When you only have 2 or 3 kids in a school that have been tested positive, and then you say, well, we had 2 kids that tested positive and they were both unvaxxed. You know exactly who they are. That is wrong. That's a violation. All right? And then another thing I just want to say, we spent $1.3 million on that middle school. Bells, whistles, lights, and you know, the cootie killer, whatever you want to call it there, infraviolet lights. And you're still having cases. I say, come on, $1.3 million on a ventilation system. You know, and it's like doing nothing. And your masks are doing nothing. And all you're doing is violating our rights. And the parents, and it brings me one more point. You're usurping the authority of the parents for their medical right to their kid, or their kids. You know, everybody has a right. I notice most of the people here that want to wear masks are gone, you know, but we're still here. You know what? This crowd, it's going to get bigger. And you know what? You're going to be going into a fight for the next every school board you have. And then on top of that, what we're gonna do is gonna keep coming back, keep hammering you, because this is totally, totally wrong. Totally wrong. It's just not right. There's one more thought, I'm gonna think about it in a second, but I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. You're all educated people. You're not stupid. You gotta see the obvious stuff. You know, and it's just ridiculous what you're doing. I can't believe you're not that stupid. I know you're not. You're educated. You go on the internet, I know we can make it find anything we want, but I'm saying you can find anything and everything on the internet. And I don't want to see the kids going back and forth, mask, no mask, mask, no mask, no mask, no mask. But at least the parents should have the absolute right over their kids. You teach. Let us take care of our kids. I'm not asking you to keep my kids healthy. I'm asking you to teach my kids. I'll keep my kid healthy. If I think they should stay home, they stay home. If I think they need a mask, we'll put a mask on. But not you. And then, the last thing I was going to say, again, going back to the law. There is no law for mask mandates. There's none for schools. And you're superseding your power at that point. The superintendent is, and the board is. And then, last one is the DHHS. I think they're not elected officials, if I remember right. I don't remember electing them. And you're going by unelected officials that can be biased one way or another. And I think that's totally wrong as well. That's why I'm working on the elected officials, and we're going to get this changed. And you're not going to be doing this anymore. This is absolutely wrong. You should be ashamed of yourself. Absolutely ashamed. Ashamed.
Hello, my name's Nicole LaRue, and just to give you a quick background on myself, I'm a healthcare worker. I've worked in a nursing home and in a level 1 trauma center throughout various departments, and I have taken a college level microbiology course. So just for a snippet of education for you, in my college level microbiology course, one of the first things we learn is the size of different microorganisms, such as bacteria and virus. As one of you mentioned earlier, a virus molecule is extremely small. If you've ever looked at the head of a needle, there are thousands and thousands of viral molecules on that needle. Now, surgical masks are designed to keep you from spreading bacteria, which is significantly larger. One bacteria molecule is significantly larger than a viral molecule. So, for example, if you were to wear your surgical mask while trying to sand some plaster down, you would have plaster all over your face. A plaster molecule is thousands of times bigger than a viral molecule. So, scientifically, the masks you are working, the surgical masks, don't work to prevent the spread of viral diseases. Secondly, most of the children are not wearing surgical masks. From what I've personally seen, they're wearing cloth masks, which are have an even bigger weave. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is that I implore you and beg you to remember the fact that you are a representative government. You are here to help convey what the people want and facilitate that. You are not here for your own agenda. You are not here to do what you think is right. You are here to do what the people think is right, regardless of what you personally believe. So I implore you to remember that in all decisions that you make. Elsa, for you, I would encourage you to remember that just because you don't hear somebody complaining about something doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I can only imagine that students that have complained about wearing the masks were treated negatively and told to be quiet or suck it up. I would not imagine that they're treated nicely by other students who think it is the right thing and the high and mighty thing to do. Lastly, I would like to ask all of you to take a moment and to remember that what you are doing is supposed to be a selfless thing. Thank you.
Aubrey Friedman, Bridgewater again. This time not on masks. This is just a question on the school opening plan. This is under academic needs, third bullet. This kind of caught my eye. The district will hire 2 full-time literacy specialists to begin Now, we've seen enrollment going down year after year. Why are they hiring new people? When I went to school, you had teachers who taught. So why is, and I know they already have some other literacy specialist teachers, why are they hiring more when enrollment is tending to go down? I don't know, I expect it'll be even down more this year. That's what I'd like to know. That's it. Okay, thank you.
I will respond to that just because it's been in prior meetings. Those literary specialists are based on the ESSER funds and our requirement to play catch up with kids that may have lost ground during remote, as outlined by the funds, the ESSER funds that we have accepted from the federal government.
But is this going to be like full-time, like forever?
No,
Just temporary?
As discussed, those are contracts that are signed with the school board and the SAU that say that these are ESSER funded positions. So they are aware and under that knowledge that that position is only temporary.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just to catch up the kids that fell way behind with the remote.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
You're welcome. Approval of manifests. Do you have any?
You have one more.
Oh, sorry.
Hello, my name's Danielle. I'm from Bristol again. So to reiterate what everyone said, I really am displeased to hear that you guys are leaving the unvaccinated wording in your reopening plan. That is total segregation. If it is in the DHHS's pamphlet or bulletins, whatever you want to call it, it does not need to be reiterated in the reopening plan. That is not something that any school board or school should even have. That's right on segregation. Because now the students and parents and population knows that, well, hey, this kid's out for 10 days. They either got COVID or they're not vaccinated. Either one. It's not fair. Also, I have no faith in your school nurses. I had a huge issue with one of them previously because they gave out personal health information to someone who had no bearing in knowing my child's personal health information.
You can't talk about, indirect it about individuals' employees. Just for
I'm talking about a group of employees that
Okay.
do not have I don't feel that they are competent enough. I am also a healthcare worker, and to say that your school nurses, generalizing all of them, are having a hard time dealing with this, their jobs aren't on the line. They can choose, just like as me, I can choose whether or not to walk away because it's too much. They can choose to stay today. Yeah, it's going to leave us short-handed nurse, so you guys have fill-ins. And if not, then yes, we have to shut school down until you guys can find one. But there's no confidence that they're not going to give that health information out to someone that, oh, my kid's not vaccinated, or your kid's not vaccinated, or oh, this one's vaccinated. It's not, should never even come up in conversation with school nurse. Because unlike, I don't know how many people know, school nurses do not have to file HIPAA by law. They file FERPA, which is two totally different things. The fact that we are mandating, forcing masking in our children's schools for schools that have no cases is ridiculous. The fact that you are not contact tracing, which is completely fine with me, because that's, I don't think, agree with. But you have no idea if this is community spread within your school or nothing, because you have no idea if person A, what variant they have compared to person B, because this state has that on your lock and key. Nobody can get that information except for the state. You have no idea if it's being transmitted in the school, or Bob and Joe had a play date and Amy went there and then they all got it outside of school. No idea. So why are we forcing it in our schools? You have this brand new HVAC system in the middle school. It's doing a lot of good. right? Because we're still making masks, having them wear masks. And it's the fact that I don't feel like you guys are going for what your people who have elected you to do, and you're going off of political science. Your version of the science, the one that you want to listen to, is just appalling. And the fact that we have one high school student that's representing the student body, well, she doesn't talk to the middle school students. She doesn't talk to the elementary school students. She's representing the high school students, who probably does not talk to every one of them.
Can we please not comment on our student representative? Thank you. Yep, she spoke today, but I'm asking you to be, it's like an employee, it's a student of the district. I'm asking you to not single out one individual person, as I had asked in the policies before. Thank you.
Okay, so I feel like there should be a representative from each school, a student from each school, on what is they're seeing, and that for any student to comment on their school, that they should have a unanimous vote versus what they think. Thank you.
My name's Brian from Bristol. Couple things. First of all, say I have two kids, one in middle school, one in elementary school. My middle school kid can get vaccinated, my elementary school kid can't. So according to your new guidelines, my middle school kid can go back to school with a mask, no problem. Well, my elementary school kid that can't get vaccinated, what am I supposed to tell him? Oh, well, your sister can go back to school because the school board likes him, likes her, but you can't? Or am I supposed to just, when I call the nurse, be like, yeah, he's vaccinated? What am I supposed to do? Are we gonna segregate the flu vaccine for how long you can stay out when you're sick for the flu vaccine? Whether you get it or you don't. How far is this gonna go? Are we gonna go back to, I don't know, white bathrooms, black bathrooms, Christians, Asians, Jews? What's gonna happen? How far is this gonna go with no mandates in place through the state, through DHHS, through any of them? Just wondering.
Hi, David LaRue again, Alexandria. So I'm sad to say I'll be voting Susan Genie out. So thank you for going on the record, because I feel like that's important, and I'm kind of disappointed in my town. So you heard me speak earlier that this 8% of the population of the state has been exposed to COVID and tested, that we know has tested positive, 8%. So it's been brought up that you guys want to make dates to re-look at when masking may or may not continue. You said, as I understand it, that you're going to have dates where every school board meeting or certain ones, you will revisit this policy to decide whether this policy will or will not continue. Well, if cases go up, most certainly you will say, well, we definitely have to keep masking forever because now cases are going up. But if cases go down, you will most certainly say, well, cases went down, so therefore masking must be doing everything we say it does, even though we know to the science level, the micron size of your virus molecules are not being caught by the mask that almost everybody seems to be wearing. The logic that is being used here is so full of holes, it is ridiculous. First off, I'm thirsty. I've been in here as long as you have, and that water fountain out there has a lock on it, so I can't go get a drink. Yet you lie through your mask and say there are no other restrictions beyond masking, the home quarantine, riding the school bus. There's a restriction right there. Those better come off tomorrow. Because a taxpayer, myself, my pregnant wife, we can't go get a drink of water because we didn't think to bring a water bottle with us because we didn't know the water fountains were segregated. Unvaccinated individuals who are household contacts of someone diagnosed with COVID-19 would be required to quarantine for 10 days from the date of last exposure. I think this has been grossly misrepresented tonight. The unvaccinated individuals are the child who will be talking to the school nurse about having to leave, right? But this does not say the child is the one who is COVID positive. All of the backlash on the vaccinated information of the household individuals is totally warranted. Because that is to say, if I had a child in the school and my wife gets sick, it is up to us to tell the school our vaccine status, regardless of the child. This policy, do you not understand what you have actually wrote here? It does not even work the way that you perpetuate that it will work. Okay? Unvaccinated individuals who are household contacts of someone diagnosed with COVID-19 will be required to quarantine for 10 days. You cannot do that. Just like you cannot force me to stay in my house for anything, you cannot force my friend's child to stay in their house for anything. That is without due process of law. I'm old enough to remember last year when we had a state of emergency and the governor kicked the can down the road, extending the state of emergency, irregardless of the numbers. Where is your state of emergency? That this gentleman, I can't see your name over here because it's not facing me, but the gentleman here has referenced the emergency with fear-mongering, pushing that we have a deadly emergency on our hands. Well, sir, there is no emergency under the law. There is no emergency under Sununu's guidance. What policy gives you the authority to do this? None. I am disgusted. I will be back. We will have more friends. And it is not lost on me, and it should not be lost on you, who is still sitting here. We had people all here up until 9-something when most everybody who was vaccinated was, or not vaccinated, was masking in here, was gone. And even some of them had to leave. Pay attention. You are elected people. I live recorded most of this. There are other people who reported this. This is public. You will be held to account with your seats. Answer questions if anybody has.
Thank you for taking, Kingsbury, Bridgewater, New Hampshire, thank you for taking the time to listen to us, to everyone here, for everyone's views. Life is very precious, it's pretty messy, it's a balance of risk and reward, and different people feel differently about a lot of different things. There's a lot of people that really stick to a couple things, like their independence and not having someone tell them what to do. It's not just a few people that feel a certain way. It seems to be a very large amount of people that do feel both ways. But life is full of risk versus reward. It's very precious, it's very fragile, can be taken away in an instant. We've seen that in the news, just in the local area, with various small accidents. And that's talking life or death, whereas we're talking about an increase in cases and a few kids and a few schools, and it is not to diminish or discount if someone becomes severely sick and is in the hospital. I wouldn't want that for my child. But I have seen a lot of children that do have, they end up with a positive result for COVID, and you ask them, how was it? And in my experience, and I tried to ask everybody that I can find, the vast majority that I've seen is, it really ranges from, it was nothing to, yeah, it was, it was pretty bad as anything else, but not worse than anything else I've ever had. So when we hear, it's cases, it's almost sounds like it's worse than it is, versus, well, it's a case, how are they? We asked them and they're fine. So that's something that weighs on some people's minds is, you know, you mentioned, we talked about last year compared to this year and how, geez, I didn't really see this resentment or this feeling until this summer. Initially, everyone was trying to be level-headed and say, you know, I don't really feel that way. I think that's an overstep and an overreach. But I see that it's something that seems to be fairly serious, so let's kind of get into it and see how it goes. But as people talk to people in their community and people they know, they start to see a pattern and they start to make decisions based on that. So when they see certain patterns, they start to get an idea, and it might not align with someone else's. That's why I mentioned everything is circumstantial. But there's a lot of people that talk about that slippery slope of, you know, we let people send their kids in as they wanted with options and they can make their own choices too. Hearing, you know, it's my job to keep people safe, and then some people are thinking it's not necessarily your job to keep people safe if you're voted in, it's to represent the people that voted you. There are some things that really hit when people hear things like that, whether it's from a small school board or it's, you know, the leader of a country. It's to represent the people that voted you in, and you might feel strongly one particular way, but everyone in your town or whoever feels a different way. And I can see how that's a very hard challenge to walk and be in that position, and I respect that, and thank you for doing your best. I do appreciate that. But it just seems like it is a slippery slope, and it's just, if wearing masks don't work, then it will be, you know, something else, and then people just wonder in their minds, well, where would it ever stop? And there are events in history where something started very small and it ended very horribly. And if it would have just been that big jump right off the bat to doing the horrible things, a lot of people would have stood up against it and said, there's no way. But when something just moves along a small step at a time, it leans in that direction, and that gives people serious concern. So, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
All right, approval of manifests.
Oh, yes, move to approve the manifests for the month of August.
Second.
Any further discussion regarding the manifest? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? I move to adjourn the meeting at 10:18. Melissa? Yes?
Ask one more thing. Would you please put on the agenda in the next meeting for a discussion?
Please send it to me in an email.
What our policies.
Please send it to me in an email. The meeting's been adjourned.
That work?
Are we, I think we're looking at the
Yeah, right?
Are we?
You're welcome, no problem.